Clemson not only passed their final test, Cole, they dominated in their final game against a team with a above 500 ACC record, taking very easy care to beat up on SMU over the weekend. So Clemson has risen in the polls yet again from 18 to 13, now bumping their heads on the top 10. The question in this very first segment of Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, can the Clemson Tigers get their way into the top 10? It's gonna be tough when you look at what they have coming up, Cole. What do you think, Tolos? 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. The Clemson Tigers are inside the top 15. Is that good enough for people to start caring now that we're coming down the stretch of the season? Welcome into the show. You can jump in on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube and watch the show live. We've already got 25 Tolos watching, and the show's not even a minute old. How about that? We want you to be a part of that. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you can jump on, chop it up with the other Tolos as well as Cole and I. It's a lot of fun. You should jump in. So, Cole, do you think Clemson could very well see a top 10 ranking by the end of the regular season, not including anything that happens in tournaments, just regular season rankings?
You know, I think they can. I think there's enough time, Diesel, for Clemson to do exactly what Don Munson told you and I last week. And, I think he was right. He said that, there's a lot of talk about this and that, and Clemson being in this projected bracket, Diesel, and maybe being a blank seed in the tournament. But he said, look, the reality is Clemson's not in yet. Clemson has to finish. And we all know that Clemson's had a fantastic season, and we also all know that Clemson's going to get in. But to Don's point, they've got to finish, because what do you and I know? We know that in basketball, rankings are great. What you did in the regular season is great. But guess what matters when it comes tournament time? How are you playing? Mm-hmm. How are you playing when it comes tournament time? Clemson right now, they're playing as good as anybody in the country, Diesel. 3 weeks from now, they want to continue to be playing that way when, we're in the midst of March Madness, 2 to 3 weeks, whatever it is. I just think that the most important thing for Clemson down the stretch is to continue to work on themselves, every single small thing, to make sure that when the tournament arrives, not the ACC, but the March Madness, the dance, that they're playing their absolute best ball possible.
So Clemson never trailed in the second half against SMU. Like I said, won that game convincingly. They were tied, or I think down a point with about 2 minutes to go in the first half, and then they turned it on. Chase Hunter had himself a big old game. He had 17 points. Jaden Zachary had a big game. Victor Locken had a big game. The only one who didn't, oddly enough, Cole, is Dylan Hunter, who went 0 for 8 from the field, 2 for 4 from free throws. So he only had 2 points in the ball game. If they wanted to go big, maybe they could have put Chauncey Wiggins in there and put a lot more of the ball handling, or put it solely on Chase Hunter. But, again, when you've got 4 out of your 5 starters scoring in double figures, Shefflin, Locken, Zachary, and Chase Hunter, you're going to win a lot of basketball games. When Jaden Zachary is hitting 5 3-pointers in the first half, put an apron on that dude and just let him cook. Get out of the way. Let the guy who's got the hot hand right now put up a whole bunch of points for you and ride it all the way to victory. But as I look, Cole, around who's around them, 10 to 15, that range where Clemson finds themselves in, smack right in the middle at number 13, I don't know that Clemson can reach the top 10 by the end of the season. And look, Brad Brownell will tell you that's not his concern. He's not worried about where they get ranked by the end of the season. Fans love to beat their chest. They love to, post about it on social media. That's great and all. But to the team, it really doesn't matter. But guess what, Cole? We're not on the team. So we get to talk about these things as if it's important.
No, without a doubt. And I'll tell you this, to your point about Ian Shefflin. You brought him up in a minute ago in talking about putting an apron on Ian Shefflin. Ian Shefflin, Diesel, when I watch him this season, when I've watched him last year and what he did Saturday, he's not a guy that's going to fill up the stat sheet. But, man, Ian Shefflin with the ball has great vision, and he's such a great passer. He literally can be on the opposite side of the court for Clemson and make a pass, from the paint, from the opposite corner across the way to Victor Locken. He had 1 turnover in the first half where it was, a bad read and SMU. It ended up being a fast break opportunity for SMU. But I'm telling you, man, it seems like Clemson's experience, Diesel, is what's carrying them. They've just got so many guys that when they get the basketball, it's not panicky. they look like they know what they're supposed to do, and I just think that comes from good coaching and experience. And Clemson has that, and I think they're a dangerous team right now.
Yeah, I don't know that I see them moving exceptionally well without the ball, but, as JD says, Ian Shefflin was playing quarterback there in the middle. When you've got a guy who can distribute, and maybe it's their system, they like to throw it interior to a quarterback and let him kind of dish it to here and there instead of having a ton of movement around the play. That's certainly just a different way to skin the cat and do things slightly differently. When you look at, again, who's around them inside the top 15, Cole, you got Texas Tech sitting there at 21-6. Now Clemson is kind of finally keeping the company that we've all looked at them all season long and say they deserve to be keeping company with these types of teams with the number of wins and losses a lot of these teams have. They were so undervalued for such a long time. It took them a while to get to where they are, Cole. But you got Texas Tech 21-6 at number 10. They blew out West Virginia at home by 22 points. They play Houston tonight. There's a possibility, if you look at what happens in that game, Texas Tech versus Houston, Houston could get that win, could knock Texas Tech down a little bit. So there's like an opportunity maybe for Clemson to gain a little bit of ground on somebody who's sitting there ahead of them. At number 11, Cole, this one is just, it's kind of head-scratching to me. Wisconsin, 21-6. Now multiple times this season, they've given up 15-point leads. They gave up a 17-point lead to Oregon. They had given up a 19-point lead earlier in the season. They've given up 15 points multiple times over the course of the season. Where's the committee docking a Wisconsin? I get it. They're 21-6. They're a really good basketball team, but they are a liability. Like, no lead is ever safe with this team. They do not know how to play with a big lead. They just give it up. I don't see how Wisconsin's sitting there at number 11, Cole. I think you got to look at them and say, well, we don't trust that team. We could put them down around that 14, 15, 16 mark.
But you know what's great about college basketball is many teams get in college basketball, to your point about a Wisconsin, right? With questions that may be valid questions. The great thing about college basketball is we'll find out. We'll find out if they're a top 10 team, because we're going to know very quickly, not only in their conference tournament, but as the dance progresses, we'll know if they're a top 10 team. And how many every year, Diesel, we see teams like Wisconsin. I'm not saying it's going to be Wisconsin this year, but a one and barbecue, right? One and done in the tournament. And there's going to be one or two teams in the top 10 this year that are done in the very first round. So when you look at the top 10, the top 15, top 20, there's some good teams. A lot of SEC teams in there, right? I watched, to your point, I watched them blow that game in overtime to Oregon. And Auburn, again on Saturday, the number one team. Auburn looks untouchable. I mean, Georgia played them really close, but I think the top 10, top 15 is so interesting because I think it's a lot tighter, Diesel. When you talk about Clemson being 13 in the AP top 25, I think 13-5 is like this, razor thin. For those watching, you can see me. It's razor thin. I think that Clemson could hang with Auburn. They beat number 2 Duke, right? I think they could hang with Florida. I think A&M could hang with the Houston Duke. They've already beaten. A&M's already got several quality wins. I don't know in past years if I can remember a top 15 that's been this tight. Michigan lost Saturday. They dropped 3 spots. Wasn't a terrible loss, but they're talking about Michigan is still a Sweet 16 team. So while there may be one or two teams in the top 15, Diesel, that drop in the first round, I think that there are so many contenders this year. That's why it's hard for us to say so-and-so's the favorite, right? This team's the favorite. Auburn, we know that Auburn's probably talked about as the overall betting favorite right now, I would assume, to win the college basketball tournament. But is there anybody in the top 15? St. John's. I mean, they got Rick Pitino. They're 24-4, Diesel. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to be in the Final Four. So I love it. I think this is what makes this sport as fun as it does. And here we are, on the 24th day of February, and we're just a few weeks away. I think this is going to be as fun as a tournament as we've had in a long time.
Yeah, this Clemson team has been real impressive down the stretch. They lost those back-to-back games against Memphis and South Carolina, went on a 3-game win streak, lost to Louisville, went on a 6-game win streak, lost to Georgia Tech. Now they're on a 4-game win streak with the opportunity to close this thing out, Cole, with an 8-game win streak. And that's really where you start to you see the committee start to take notice. Like, whoa, they've won 8 straight. Now, I get what they're going to be facing down the stretch is not strong. It's not good. I mean, SMU, like I said, was their last good test of the season. With Notre Dame, Virginia, Boston College, and Virginia Tech coming up, they don't face a single team that has a conference record over 500 in the ACC. Not that actually would say that much, being plus 500 in this ACC.
Right.
Compare that, Cole, to a team that you just mentioned, Texas A&M, who's 1-5 in the AP top 10 matchups. They've played a lot of those matchups. Clemson hasn't played a lot of those matchups.
A&M's had a gauntlet.
They've had a gauntlet, but they haven't. But see, they haven't performed well.
No, they haven't.
In that gauntlet.
Yeah.
So that tells me you look at a Texas A&M team and say, okay, maybe they can make a Sweet 16 depending on who they get matched up against in their particular regions. But once they come down to the nitty gritty, and it's like, okay, now everybody here is legitimately good. Everybody's got good bigs. Everybody's got good 3-point shooters. Everybody's got decent defense and fast break offenses. Can they hold up in that kind of a tournament situation? I'm not entirely sure that they can. So, it depends on what happens with A&M and their matchups down the stretch. I haven't looked up to see kind of who they have facing down the road. I guarantee it, being that it's in the SEC, I guarantee it's going to be a tough stretch.
Hopefully they'll have a Georgia and LSU coming up.
They got Vanderbilt, ranked Florida on the road, number 1 Auburn, and LSU coming up. So 2 out of 4 teams inside the top 3 for Texas A&M. So I think Clemson possibly could kind of maybe inch their way up a week from now in the next AP poll and the final one that comes out after that. But I'm not entirely sure, Cole. I'm not sold that this team's going to break into the single digits as far as the AP is concerned. Then again, like I said, they could be ending this season on an 8-game win streak.
Right.
And the AP
and that's what matters, right?
Finally starts paying attention to that and say, oh, wow, this team's really, really good.
Yeah, and ultimately what Clemson is ranked, to your point, in the very first few minutes of the show, you said ultimately Brad Brownell probably doesn't care. You're right. I mean, ultimately, you'd rather end the season winning 8 in a row, right, than be ranked top 10.
You probably want some ranked outside of the top 10 just so he can use it as motivation.
Doesn't hurt at all. Doesn't hurt at all. And for this team, look, they're so focused. They're so poised. One texter from the 344, this is a good text, says, I think Clemson has turned it on and is leaving it on. Tolo.
Attaboy.
That's a good texter. The best one of the day. Only one of the day. Good. Very good.
Hey,
text.
starting strong, though. It can only go downhill from there.
Man, I like it. 844 fan phone. You know what's interesting? I watched Clemson SMU Saturday. I watched a couple other games. I do think, Diesel, that some years, and I can't remember exactly if this was 3 or 4 years ago, but there are some years people complain that there's no Cinderellas. And this is an interesting point. And I want to hear texters, Tolos, if you agree or disagree when it comes to college basketball. If you told me, and I could be wrong, I probably will be, but Diesel, if you told me today, at the end of February, that there's not going to be a Cinderella in the Elite 8, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe Sweet 16, but again, going back to my point about the top 15, I just think there's so many good teams. I think there's so much dominance. Not to say there's not going to be upsets. There's going to be upsets. Every year it happens. But if you told me, hey, in the Elite 8, you're going to have Kentucky, you're going to have Auburn, you're going to have Clemson, you're going to have other teams that have performed well all season long, maybe even a Louisville, you're going to have Alabama. I don't know that this is the year that a Cinderella makes a deep run. Again, record this, mark it down, write it down, because on the 24th of February, I'll probably jinx myself and we'll have 2 Cinderellas in the Elite 8, maybe in the Final 4. But I feel a blue blood heavy year coming. And I know your traditional blue bloods like North Carolina, they're not going to be there. But I feel a blue blood Duke. I feel, Alabama, they're not a traditional blue blood of college basketball. But I just feel like there's so many good teams that you're going to have the big brands. I mean, Kentucky's...
as soon as you say that, we're going to get total chaos, right?
I know. That's the
that's
reason.
great. It's great either way, right? That's what makes the NCAA tournament so great.
But sometimes fans complain that there's not enough.
To me, no matter how it plays out, it's great. It's either great because the big brands have shown, they've proven, over the course of the season, we're simply better than everybody else. We've got more talent than everybody else. Or you get a team or two that makes their way in, like a St. Peter's type of team that just captures America's hearts and says, oh, that's a team we want to root for. I mean, could you imagine? I don't know if anybody ever, put the numbers to it or added this up. How much money and how much marketing St. Peter's got for their basketball program a few years ago when they made their crazy run? It's just absurd to think what it can do for a school like that. So, hey, I love the NCAA tournament either way. I wish people would adopt more of that mentality and mindset when it comes to the college football playoff, instead of saying, well, we have to get the biggest brands in. We have to get these brands in. If Alabama's not in it, this thing is, I don't like it.
Yeah.
No, let it happen. Let it play out. Let the chaos be the entertainment, not what you expected to happen being the entertainment. By the way, Cole, we'd be remiss here in the very first segment of the show if we did not throw out some flowers to the South Carolina Gamecocks. Let them crow. Have you got that MP3 queued up and ready to go? Yeah. South Carolina getting an SEC win. How about it? Come on and raise up.
That deserves one more.
Yeah.
Maybe even two more.
And it wasn't even a close game. They blew the doors off Texas. And Texas is a good basketball team. They're not great, but they're a decent basketball team.
I jinxed them last week when I said the baseball team's going to get an SEC win.
You challenged them.
I challenged them.
Yeah.
Lamont Paris took that tweet in the locker room. He said, this idiot sports talk radio show host in Greenville said that our baseball team's going to get a win before y'all do it in conference play. And we're not going to let that happen. You're right. How about the Gamecocks?
So, Colin Murray-Boyles got himself a double-double, 22 and 10. It also ensures that Texas has a 500 record or worse this year. They can't do any better than 500. So congratulations to the South Carolina Gamecock fans. I understand this is what it's referred to as a Pyrrhic victory. It appears that you've won, but you've ultimately, at the end of the day, lost the whole war.
It's a good time. Look, it's weird because it's a good time to be a South Carolina fan for other reasons, but not for basketball. Like women's basketball, not as elite. Men's basketball just got their first conference win. But how about this, Diesel? South Carolina is one of two schools in the country. I'm going to repeat that. South Carolina is one of two schools in the country with an undefeated baseball and softball team. So it's a good time to be a Gamecock. One of two schools in the country, the entire country. There's only two schools, and South Carolina is one of them. Baseball and softball off to a fantastic start. A ton of good content coming up because we have South Carolina Clemson this weekend. We're going to find out. People have said on Twitter to me this weekend, Carolina's schedule's been soft. Look, it has been. But we're going to find out, right? We're going to find out just how good South Carolina is because Clemson's a good team. Clemson's a good baseball team, so it should be a lot of fun. Also, we're going to talk Shedeur Sanders at 3:45. Home team, Brandon Leak, Diesel, one of our favorites, joins us at 4:05 today, right here on the Fan Upstate. Clemson, South Carolina football. A little look ahead at 4:20. Marketplace Monday, 4:45. Overreaction Monday at 5 o'clock. And we'll dive a little deeper into Clemson and South Carolina baseball this past weekend. But we continue the basketball conversation in the very next segment as we are joined by a champion, someone locally who's won a lot of championships. His name is Thomas Ryan. He's the head basketball coach at Dorman High School. Coach P.J. Hall, obviously, who's now with the Nuggets, has a lot of players doing a lot of good things at the next level. And Thomas Ryan, Dorman Cavaliers, what are they doing? Just their 9th Upper State Championship appearance that they're going to play in this Saturday. We'll talk to him and talk a little basketball in the very next segment. He's Diesel, I'm Cole Bryson, and this is the Fan Upstate. this segment as we talk a little basketball with Thomas Ryan, the head basketball coach at Dorman. He's coached P.J. Hall, he's coached Miles State, who's Diesel, your alma mater, having a really good year up at App State right now. Talking all things basketball and Dorman hoops with Thomas Ryan. Coach, how are you, man?
Doing good. Hope y'all are. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Doing fantastic. We appreciate you taking time to hop on with us. Dorman with a 74-56 win over River Bluff on Saturday, headed to yet another Upper State championship, the 9th, I believe, Coach, at Dorman in just a short few years, it feels like. You know, we hear coaches all the time on this show and other platforms talk about how hard it is at any level to get to the mountaintop, but we also hear coaches say it's harder, it's more difficult to stay there. I want to start off with that. How have you, with Dorman basketball and your tenure there, been able to keep Dorman basketball at the mountaintop?
Well, I don't really know if I know the answer to that. We've been very fortunate and blessed. At the same time, I think when we set season goals, we make them a priority. Is like winning region championships is like really the only goal we have in our locker room, our team, because I always feel like if you win a region championship, the bracket then, you know, set up for you to have success. You win home games. And so, you know, I don't think winning state championships or making upper state championships is a good goal. So we just try to around here, our goal every year is to contend and win a region championship. And if that happens, we'll be in a good spot.
Coach, we spent some time talking about the season Clemson is having this year and, you know, being sitting there just outside the top 10 now. And we were wondering how much, you know, the pollsters, quote unquote, disrespecting a team like that actually goes into feeding and motivating a team. So as a coach, can you tell me how much does, you know, the buzzword of bulletin board material, how much does that actually enter the minds of your players? Do you try to use that as a motivating tool, or do you try to keep it out of their minds to keep them from being distracted by the, you know, media attention or what people are saying out there?
Yeah, I probably think through the success of the years we've had, we probably just try to keep it in-house. And, hey, look, that we're trying to be the best version of what we can be. Best is the standard. I like that Coach Sweeney has said that, talking Clemson football. I mean, we, you know, we're trying to, like I just said, win region championships. And so I think that stays internal. You know, I think probably the college level is a little different than the high school level. But, there's no doubt that there's always external noise, and you either can make it a positive or a negative. And for us, we just try to, hey, let's stay in our house and make sure we're all, running for the same goal, and not let individual accomplishments, individual scoring, none of that get in the way of us being the best we can be.
Talking to 5-time state champion Thomas Ryan, the head basketball coach at Dorman. Coach, you know, we talk about this a lot in basketball, and I think it reigns true for your team. You know, you guys have had a fantastic season, 24-4, but you've played some really good teams, especially earlier in the year. You had a loss to Riverside in overtime. What do you make of the philosophy when it comes to basketball of wanting to play the best basketball at the most important time of the year, which is right now? It's playoff time, and a 74-56 win over River Bluff, a 79-73 win over a good JL Man team, and obviously we all know how tough the region is that you guys play in night in and night out with Burns and Bowling Springs and the likes of Riverside. So how much is that discussed in your locker room amongst the coaches that you have year in and year out of just making sure that when you get to this time of year, when you get to February, you guys are doing everything it takes to be playing your best basketball?
Well, I think you've hit on a big thing that's contributed to our success. Over the last decade, we've tried to play a national schedule. We're not just interested out of conference or out of region games. We're looking to travel and play in great tournaments, play against some of the top teams in the country, whether it's the beach ball. This year we went to Knoxville and played in a great tournament in Kingsport, Tennessee. We've been to Louisville, Kentucky. We've been a little bit of everywhere, trying to make sure that in non-conference we play the very best competition there is out there. I mean, we're talking about top 20 teams in the country, so that then when we come back and face the Burns, the Riverside, the Spartanburgs, that we're ready to play at a high level. And I don't think you can get that unless you have put your teams in very, very difficult situations. It may cost you a couple wins. We're 24-4. Maybe we could be 27-1. But you know what? I don't care about that. I want us to play the best of the best that we're prepared to play our best basketball this time of year.
Talking to Thomas Ryan, Dorman Cavaliers boys basketball coach here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. You've now had multiple guys that have come out of your system and gone on to play high-level college basketball, one of them playing in the NBA right now. I know a lot of guys like P.J. Hall, like Miles Tate, may come back to you on occasion and kind of try to pick your brain for advice or how to handle things. But have you ever tried to connect guys who have played for you in the past and let them be able to kind of bounce off of each other? Because, as a coach, I'm sure you have your own unique perspective, but it's different from the perspective of a player. Do you ever try to connect guys like Miles and PJ together to see how that might work out?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we want those guys, and we're glad they come back. And I don't want to – we'd be remiss not to mention Noah Clown, who was a first-round draft pick for Brooklyn Nets and had an incredible – he's another guy in the NBA. But when those guys – get to come back, and they do all the time, then I want our guys to see them, see a workout from them. PJ's a great leader. Noah's a great leader. Miles Tate's having one of the best years in college basketball, regardless of power. Doesn't matter. His stats are incredible this year. So getting those guys back in our practices, stopping in for a practice or two is huge. And, we got two sophomores right now that both broke Miles Tate's record for most threes in a year in the same season, which is exciting for us. Moving forward, but hey, I want them to talk to Miles and what it means to play here at Dorman, what it means to the expectations of winning region championships, the expectation that we're the premier basketball program in our state. We expect that, but we got to talk about that, but we also have to do that day in and day out. You can talk about it, but you got to show it. You got to practice it. You got to live it. You got to believe it. And that's where Miles Tate, Noah Clowney, P.J. Hall, those guys are so important.
Coach, I guess you can take a little bit of credit as well. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who played for the Eagles for a short time, and, he played for you as well. So I guess you can take a little bit of credit for that as well. But his brother has been a big part of your team this year, especially down the stretch. Covering you guys, it seems like Keenan Arcega-Whiteside's been the kind of the catalyst down the stretch that's really elevated this team. Do you feel that same way, or do you feel like his play is something that, you've seen this consistent play out of all season long?
Well, you make a great point there, and it's back to your previous question. I found JJ the other night in our locker room talking to one of our guards about, hey, you've kind of, Cam, he's a defensive guru for us. I mean, he was saying, hey, you changed this game, and I think him hearing from a former NFL player, a guy that played in our program, a guy that helped us win a region championship or two region championships himself is huge. So you talked about, PJ, Miles, Noah, but that's an NFL guy that's talking to our current team right now. But to your original point, Keenan has been absolutely magnificent. He's played great. He's just been named to the North-South All-Star team, which is huge. I don't know that we beat River Bluff the other night. We were 0 for 13 in the first half from three, but he kept us in the game. So then in the second half, like I told the guys at halftime, we're not going 0 for 13 again. So just hang in there. We'll win this game if we stay the course. But the only reason we were there was because of Keenan. And Keenan's just one of those guys. He's a do-it-all guy. He's averaging 14.7 rebounds on the year, and he's a big, big part of us having a chance to win an upper state championship.
Coach, I can't imagine that you and your program want for much there at Dorman University, as they say, but, Nick Saban was the absolute best at snuffing out the little things that were going wrong with his program and making a huge deal out of them. What is a thing or two that you would love to see take another step at Dorman to help, just move this program another step forward up the ladder?
Well, I think, I'm blessed. Administration has been great to me, and our program, our facility is great. We've got 3 middle schools that are true feed. So from that standpoint, the infrastructure is there for us to be great. I think it's continuing to emphasize and pay attention to detail, do the little things, and start these kids at a younger age, which might mean, again, our developmental leagues and 5th and 6th grade basketball, and then 7th and 8th. We're just developing these kids earlier in our program has been a big part of us. I don't have a complaint as far as, if I'm being honest with you, I think we probably have the best of the best infrastructure to be great, and that is a tribute to our administration. I've got a great coaching staff. I've got 3 coaches, that work here in the building. I think that's a huge thing. We've got a basketball class. So the infrastructure's there, and I think kids in the area and kids across the upstate realize, hey, if I come to Dorman and play, and I've got a chance to play college basketball, and that's the big thing that we want reiterate that we want to give families and kids the best opportunity to be the best version of them they can be. And I think that's what we've got at Dorman right now.
Coach, you and your Cavaliers now have a week off from Saturday's game at home on the 22nd to March 1st against Blythewood for the Upper State title in Florence, South Carolina. Usually you're playing 2 weeks, sometimes, or 2 games rather, sometimes 3 in 1 week. Do you do anything different when it comes to having a week off? And also, second part of that question, you are pretty familiar with Blythewood. One of your first state championships was a win over Blythewood, and you beat them last year in the playoffs. What do you know about this Blythewood squad going into Saturday's game?
Well, Zeke is same coach, and they're really well coached. I mean, they do a great job. They're really, really good. They're very physical. They're athletic. It's a tough matchup for us. It is one we're familiar with. It's one we can win. But like I just told our guys at practice earlier, like we got to be great. We got to be the best version of us on Saturday. They're very physical. We've got to meet their intensity. We've got to rebound the basketball. There's a lot there we've got to do. It's a good matchup. It's going to be a great basketball game. I think both teams are very similar in a lot of ways. Now, you don't want to get me on my soapbox about the week-long
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
In venue. I mean, there's a lot that I can go there that I think I think you could put 3 or 4 bad leaders in a room and come up with a better venue and schedule than the high school league. Okay. And my AD's already told me, Thomas, would you please not be too vocal this week? I think it's a travesty that these kids are going to Florence to play in the Upper State Championship. I mean, Burns last year, I mean, what a great ride they had. And for those kids to have to play in Florence was, to me, just horrendous. And, hey, we're thankful to be playing, but I can tell you, like I just said, I mean, there's a lot better leaders out there than we got going on right now in the high school league.
Coach, it feels like we've kind of tapped in on, kind of a topic that's been boiling under the surface over the last week or two. Cole and I have had reason to bring up travel ball and summer leagues across multiple sports. I know baseball, it's a huge deal, travel ball with baseball, but all sports have it. Basketball has it. They have AAU and other different various summer leagues that kids can be a part of. So from your coaching perspective, is travel ball helpful or more hurtful to today's athletes? In what ways is it really making them take a step forward, and in what ways is it also maybe holding them back a little?
Well, I think that question's loaded, and it's a great question, but it's very loaded. I think there's times the exposure, at the right time is very good, especially I tell parents, like going into your junior and senior year, I think it's time to be seen. I think these parents that have got their kids in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade traveling every weekend, I think that's a mistake, okay? I mean, I think that got to be very calculated in what that looks like. And so, again, not to dodge your question, but it's a loaded question. And, hey, figuring out, what kind of coach do you have? What's your exposure look like? Is this the time my kid needs the exposure, or is this a time I just need to get better? And so I think that varies from kid to kid and grade to grade. So, I do think as a kid gets in their junior and senior year, they need to make sure they're in an exposure-type situation. And whether you like it or not, travel ball is part of that equation.
Coach, fantastic stuff. Appreciate you hopping on. Best of luck on Saturday versus Blythewood. We'll be pulling for you, and we appreciate you taking time to hop on with us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate all y'all do for our area. Okay?
Absolutely. Thomas
Thanks,
Ryan,
Coach.
the head basketball coach at Dorman High School. Appreciate him. And he's exactly right. I'm glad he said it. I've said it on this show. I've told you that, the high school league is questionable, right, with things. And let's just say Diesel, Blythewood, in the Columbia area. Florence for them, obviously closer than the upstate teams. But let's say in an example, let's say Burns beat Blythewood a couple of weeks ago. And Burns and Dorman, who are separated by, not far, not many miles. Let's pretend they were in the Upper State Championship on Saturday. You're talking about Burns and Dorman right here in the upstate, getting on a bus and driving to Florence, South Carolina, in the lower part of the state to play an upper state championship basketball game. Make that make sense. And he's right. And I'm glad he said it. I mean, he's exactly right. It's bad. We've got venues. The Bon Secure, we used to play it there. I don't know why, what happened there. They say money is the problem. I don't know if you know this or not. Wofford has a pretty nice facility. Like, can you imagine the Upper State Championship being
Next
played
year,
at Wofford
Furman's
College?
going to have a nice facility. Little John Coliseum at Clemson is a beautiful facility.
It's
you got
ridiculous,
options. Man. Yeah, that's wrong. It also, it adds a hardship to friends and family to have them have an opportunity to go see their kids and their loved ones play.
20 miles, by the way, is what it is between Burns and Dorman. So if those two teams were playing, like, for example, Gaffney, the girls' team, Mark Cuff and Gaffney, they're having to get on a bus if they win tomorrow night, and I think they'll beat Greenville. If they beat Greenville tomorrow night, they'll get on a bus and leave Gaffney, Diesel, which from Gaffney to Florence, I mean, that's a long ways away, man. To play in an upper state again, state championship, that's fine. That's one thing. But an upper state championship being held in Florence, it's again, JD said it on the stream. South Carolina High School League needs new leadership, says JD. It's not there's nothing that's, a secret when it comes to that. It's to Coach Ryan's point, it's sad, but it is what it is.
If he ever, stops being a coach, he's got a future in politics because he did a fantastic job dodging those two questions, touching on enough in those two answers.
Diplomatic, right?
He gave the very diplomatic answer, but you could tell there's a lot seething under the surface. Yeah. When we come back, Cole, something that I slammed Caleb Williams for last year is happening again in the NFL draft process. Mountain or molehill, we'll get to that next. It seemingly happens all the time, Cole. The best players, especially quarterbacks in the NFL draft, refuse to throw at the combine. They can't be bothered to show up and throw to receivers they don't know like the back of their hand. They can't do it. They won't do it. They have to have their own days, their pro days at their schools, which, say what you want, it's all very choreographed to make them look as good as possible. And now Shedeur Sanders, Cole, has said that he will not participate and throw at the NFL Combine. He will instead do his very own pro day. Mountain or molehill, Cole, now that we've seen Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward in years past. I mean, last year, Jaden Daniels didn't do it. Caleb Williams didn't do it. Drake May didn't do it. So it's like, you can't necessarily say that if they won't do it, they're going to be a failure in the NFL. But more and more, Cole, maybe it's age, man. Maybe I'm turning into old guy yells at cloud here, and there's nothing that can be done about this. But I don't like people opting out of the process when this is an age-old process to allow teams to get access to you, to see you throw, and bring everybody together in one place. Again, mountain or molehill that Shedeur Sanders won't throw at the combine?
You know, I'll say a molehill for the reason that you stated, actually. And Diesel, he's doing something, right? If Shedeur Sanders wasn't going to be a part of the process at all, I'd say, you know, maybe a little mountain, maybe a little problem, right? Maybe I have a little issue with that. But, there's so many quarterbacks that do the pro days that you talked about at their school with their receivers, right? Where it may be a little choreographed in terms of they know what's going to happen, who they're going to throw to. Here's my stance on it. If NFL scouts that I hear and listen to and watch on these major networks, if they themselves are talking about how, I don't want to say useless the NFL Combine is, but how it's not as important as some people make it out to be. If those scouts and former GMs and former player personnel directors are talking about that, I'll trust them. I'll understand that maybe there's more. I mean, who was it a couple of years ago? C.J. Stroud, he failed a test, right? He failed a test, and that's why he didn't go, or not failed a test. He didn't
perform.
He didn't perform as well on a test.
Well, he failed that thing. He failed it
Did
hard.
He fail it?
Like,
Okay.
It wasn't like Bryce got a 98,
right?
And CJ got a 89. It was like a 98 to a 40. It was bad.
I'm glad he's doing something though. I'm glad he's doing the pro day. If you told me that. If I heard from these NFL guys and those in the know that the combine was the end-all, be-all, I'd say mountain. I'd say he needs to be there. He needs to participate. However, I'll go molehill, though. What about you?
Well, I think it's a big deal. To me, like I said, it's opting out of the process. To me, that is a sign of ego. It's a sign of selfishness. And look, it doesn't affect all of them negatively. Some of them, Jaden Daniels obviously didn't affect him. However, I think when you don't let enough teams get access to you, you have to let them go strictly off of your college film and a very choreographed session with NFL scouts. So I don't know that you necessarily get all the information you could possibly get. And, I plan on asking our next guest about this. Hometown Brandon Lee going to join us in the next segment.
Yep.
I want to ask him about, Shedeur dropping in the latest mock drafts. He's dropped, previous to this announcement, he was commonly seen as a top 3 draft prospect. Now he's fallen down to number 6 in one CBS.com mock draft. And I don't know if him refusing to throw had anything to do with that mock. I don't know what has caused him to fall down. But again, an opportunity to get in front of the people who may choose to employ you, just refusing to be a part of that process, it just reeks of selfishness when you look at the story that we had a few weeks ago about him renting out a strip club for all of his players and kind of just not doing everything he needs to do to be the best possible player that he can. I mean, imagine Cole going and taking the SAT for the first time and you get an okay score. You're like, that's fine to get me into a local community college. I don't need to go take it again. I don't need to go, I don't need to go improve my score so that I can improve my draft stock. I don't like it, man.
What did you say on the text line? Texters, Tolos, 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. From the 344. Texter says, it's a molehill because Shedeur doesn't stand to gain anything from doing it at the combine. At this point, he will be drafted top 5. Only thing that changes is what team that moves there to get him, if any.
So this is JD. How do you know he doesn't stand to gain anything? I mean, that's the buzzword. That's the things that people on ESPN report. It's like saying meaningless bowl games. How do you know that he can't improve any element of his draft grade by going and being a part of this combine?
Yeah, texter from the 488, nothing to gain and everything to lose if you have a bad day from Shedeur's standpoint. Texter from the 419, if you're projected to be top 5, that's all subjective at that level based on the team's needs.
Well, he's not anymore, not according to that CBS mock draft.
He dropped out of the top 5.
He's dropped out of the top 5.
And that was, we looked at a CBS mock draft about 3 weeks ago, I believe. It was the latest. Well, I don't know exactly whose it was at CBS, but I think he was 2.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? A couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, for the longest time it was Cam, Travis, and Shedeur. And you could flip those 3 around however you wanted to, but they were almost every single time locked into the top 3. Now, again, it's just one mock draft. It's just one. It's CBS.com.
It's Tyler, I had his name here. Tyler Sullivan of CBS is who you're referring to in this mock draft. He has some 6th. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if some of these guys will occasionally just like futz with the numbers a little bit and move a guy down just to get people talking about their mock draft. I mean, because what good does it do to put out the same mock draft 3, 4, 5 times leading up to a draft?
Also, I think that here's my opinion on that. If these sources, these guys that are making these mock drafts, if they're making these mock drafts so early that they have not really talked to these teams and gotten a feel from you, Diesel, of, hey, who are you thinking about taking 3rd? They're just projecting. Okay,
sure.
Then as you get closer, you get late February, you get March, you get April, these sources, these guys, they start talking to teams, right? They hear, hey, the Cleveland Browns, they're looking at Mason Graham, defensive lineman at Michigan. They're really not as high on Shedeur. And then they hear that the Giants are looking at Travis Hunter, and then they hear that the Patriots are looking at Will Campbell, out of LSU. So a lot of these early mock drafts, I don't want to say they're just bogus, but I think sometimes, Diesel, they're just these guys projecting in terms of what's the trend right now. What is it? What's the buzz? What's everybody saying about where these guys may go?
So it's so funny that, again, I'm not singling just JD out. That's just the only phone number out of this bunch that I actually recognize. Mm-hmm. We've got JD and 3 other Tolos who have all said the same thing. Well, nothing to gain, everything to lose. What does he have to do? Why should he go and do the draft? Or why should he go and do the combine? Because how many times have you heard these GMs and scouts talk about fit? How many times have you heard them talking about being a quality teammate, being a team player? This is evidence of not being a team player. So it absolutely has an effect.
Texter says, who cares about Tyler from Spartanburg's mock draft? When is the latest draft? A quarterback didn't go 5. Good text, Texter. All right, we on the other side at 4:05 will be joined by home team Brandon Leak to talk Falcons, Braves, Georgia. He joins us every few months, and Brandon Leak out of 680 The Fan. He's the best. We'll talk to Brandon next. Diesel, have you seen the new poster that is in the Fan Upstate studios as of this morning? It is behind you on the wall, and I got a text message about it this morning because Rob Brown put this up, and I was unable to comment on it. I didn't see Lonzo's text, but evidently there was a big discussion about this morning on the Rob Brown show. So let's talk about it.
You know what? In case people don't know, I'm going to slide out of the way.
There you go. Now they can see it.
I'm going to, sorry,
it's not the best.
Quality webcams showing you, it says, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat.
Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. So Brandon Leak, 680 The Fan, joining us in about 4 minutes right here on the Fan Upstate. But before he does, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. I guess this was a quote from the great Rob Brown, who you can hear on this station from 6 to 10 every weekday morning.
And he knows ball. So
he does. I don't know if this was a controversy. I don't know if this was a big stink on the show. But I saw this when I came in the studio today. I looked at it. I thought about it. I walked down the hall and thought about it twice. And Diesel, I want to hear from you and the Tolos before we get to Brandon Leak. Again, one more time. Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. Is Rob Brown right or is Rob Brown wrong?
Rob Brown is wrong, but I see his point because wins and losses have to matter. If wins and losses don't matter, what are we doing here? Sure. What good is it to have a quarterback that goes out and throws for 5,000 yards a season if his team ends up 3-14 every single year? Oh, you got a great quarterback, but the team sucks. Well, he didn't win anything. So what difference does it make? I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, most important stat. As a matter of fact, I probably wouldn't put it in the top 5 when it comes to most important stats for judging a quarterback over the course of a career, right? You can certainly look at individual wins and losses and say, well, the quarterback is the reason why they didn't win that game, or he is the reason why they did win that game. And in that sense, Cole, I think you could replace wins and losses with come from behind victories, with scoring drives inside the final 2 minutes of a game or final possession. I think there are more nuanced ways to really depict the impact that a quarterback has.
Yeah, so I think when I read that, I think situation matters, right? What's the situation around the quarterback, Diesel? Because you said about throwing for 5,000 yards and, not being, a winner. There is validity to that. However, when I say situation matters, what if we're talking about a kid, a quarterback who's elite, a D1 prospect in a small town in Alabama? And this small town's a 2A school. They don't have a lot of talent around them, and he throws for, let's say 4,000 yards his senior year, has a lot of offers, has a lot of looks, doesn't have the receivers and the offensive line. Diesel, they go 2-8, right? Missed the playoffs. I don't think in that situation it's the end-all, be-all. To your point, you said that. I'm with you. It shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. Does it matter? Sure, but I also think the situation matters. Yeah, you want wins. JD brought up Joe Burrow. You want wins. Joe Burrow has unfortunately been a victim of the circumstance that his franchise decided to pay their top 3 players, and now, they're paying for it a little bit.
Well, a good way to look at that also is ask Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, both players that win a lot of regular season games and are great until they hit a certain point in the playoffs and they just don't win. You could also look and say playoff wins are not a quarterback stat. And I get where you're coming from with that argument, Rob, but I think that you're wrong because it does have to matter. You can be a great regular season quarterback, put up a lot of stats, and not win games when it really matters. And then that certainly colors or taints the way that people look at your legacy down the stretch. You could say, okay, he won a lot of games, but did he ever win any trophies? Did he ever win when it really mattered the most? And in that case, wins and losses absolutely are a quarterback stat, and they do matter.
That's a great question. It's a great poster, a new addition to the studios here in the Fan Upstate. And we bring in home team Brandon Leak, one of our favorite guests that we have on from 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Brandon, one of our co-hosts, you're a morning show guy, put up a new poster with a quote on it and his picture that says, Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. That is from the Rob Brown Show, which airs on this station every weekday morning. Is Rob right on that? Are wins and losses a quarterback stat in the mind of home team Brandon Leak?
Now, that's a hot sports opinion. We're told to give out hot sports opinions every now and then. I would just ask, when you get ready to send somebody to the Hall of Fame, you go over stats, which is a number. You go over yards and touchdowns, which are numbers. And then you do go over wins and losses, just like coaches. So, yeah, the wins and losses not only is a quarterback number, it is a coach number, and it is a thing. If you have a lot of those W's by your name as a quarterback, you're looked at differently than somebody who has a lot of L's next to their name as quarterback.
Brandon, I'm going to bring you into a conversation that we had in the last segment of the show, and you said it there. Our job is to bring big sports opinions, and I've been very harsh on Caleb Williams since last year when he refused to be a part of the whole quarterback draft process, all of the combines and the visiting other teams, et cetera, et cetera. Cam Ward is not going to do it. Shedeur Sanders, they just announced that he is opting out of the process when it comes to the NFL draft. Yeah, these guys can throw at their own pro days, and they may still go inside the top 5. But the mock draft for CBS Sports now has Shedeur going 6th to the Raiders. So to steal a word from Shawshank Redemption and Andy Dufresne, am I being obtuse when I say that opting out of the process should be seen, maybe it's not a red flag, but it's definitely not a green flag?
I get it for people who say, look, these are the measurables that GMs and coaches and coordinators and franchises use to make determinations on quarterbacks and other players. So I get it's here for you to compete and let's just see what you can do. The other side of it is, how does it benefit me? I mean, am I going to really move up from 6 to 3 if I'm Shedeur Sanders? No. If somebody wants to get me, they'll get me because Cam Ward and myself are the 2 top quarterbacks, it looks like, that are going to go off the board. So for people who want to criticize and question, well, why wouldn't you do it? I get it. But if you're a top pick and you know you're going in a space where people who need quarterbacks are going to be drafting you, I don't know what you gain. The only thing you can do is miss some targets, be a little bit off, not be used to the drills that they have you do and look bad. And the only thing you're going to do is create a system where you have more negative attention when you just spent years in college with live bullets and people trying to take your head off on a Saturday, showing you exactly what you could do against that kind of competition.
Hey, Brandon, right now, here it is, the end of February on this show in the upstate of South Carolina. We talk a lot of Clemson and South Carolina basketball, baseball, obviously the draft coming up, and a lot of local flavor. And Atlanta right now, in the midst of spring training, for the Atlanta Braves, and what you do on 680 The Fan, are the Braves the number one point of interest right now for those in Atlanta and your market? And if it's not the Braves this time of year, what is it?
Yeah, it'll be Braves right now because spring training just started. Now, as spring training goes along and our storylines in Atlanta are the unhealthy trying to get healthy. So we just had Ian Anderson, who had been out due to injury, pitched yesterday. So that became part of the narrative of spring training. But you have a lot of guys in Spencer Strider and in Ronald Acuna Jr. who won't be a part of spring training and won't be a part of the start of the regular season. Yeah, the Braves, certainly people want to poke around and see what's going on. I think what's up next, obviously, the SEC and what's happened in college basketball, the absolute genesis of a dominating basketball conference in the SEC, now getting ready to wind down the last 4 or 5 games of the regular season, head to tournament play, and everybody will be focused on the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, in Georgia, it doesn't look like, unless the Bulldogs rip off a massive win streak at the end, starting with Florida coming up tomorrow night, it'll be tough for them unless they win multiple games in the SEC champion or in the SEC tournament to get to a tournament bid. So we're a little bit down on that.
Well, Brandon Leak, I'm glad that you put that one on a tee for me. It teaches me we're not playing coach's pitch. We're playing T-ball right now because you put it right there on the tee. I had that question about Georgia basketball. Just how much emphasis is Josh Brooks putting on this basketball program? 4-10 in the SEC. Obviously, it's a proud fan base that loves winning at football, and they know how much fun winning can be. I mean, you got to go all the way back to 2015, 2016 to find a winning season. Is it just kind of a don't embarrass us, get us to football season kind of program, or Does he actually want to make this an elite national level program?
No, he is looking to turn the corner. And Mike White, who now has been a part of the sidelines for the last 3 years, it really is just a disappointing year. They've had massive renovations to the Bulldogs' home facilities at Stegman Memorial Coliseum, and the upgrades have certainly been welcomed by the fans. So if you go to Auburn, if you go to Ole Miss, if you go to Alabama, the other schools at the top of the SEC, they are pouring resources into their venues and into the program, and Georgia's done the same thing. It's been really frustrating because the Bulldogs started off 14-2 before they got to conference play. They knocked off Kentucky, so things looked like even if you won 50% of your games here in the SEC, it would have been a magical ride, and trying to get to 22 or 23 wins would have been awesome. And now you're scraping to see if you can get to 20, and it just really has been disappointing because they cannot get it together. They either get off to slow starts or they get off to slow finishes at the end. And a typical example of that was when they were right there, 5-point game with 5 minutes to go against the number one team in Auburn, and they just couldn't get back-to-back stops and ended up losing by double digits. So it's been tremendously disappointing. But no, Josh Brooks, he wants to win. The Georgia program, they want to win in gymnastics. They want to win in tennis. They want to win in football. They want to win in basketball. They want to win in baseball. They want to have an overall winning program.
Home team Brandon Leak of 680 The Fan in Atlanta joining us right here on The Fan Upstate. Brandon, from 1 year ago today, on February the 24th, 2024, to today, fast forward an entire year, the Falcons have looked a little bit different, right? We were all surprised by the drafting of Michael Penix in the 2024 NFL draft, and now the Falcons have the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL draft coming up in about 59 days, under 60 days away now until the NFL draft. What is the overall consensus from those of you who cover the Atlanta Falcons day in and day out, of what the Falcons may do, or just from what happened last year, are y'all just throwing your hands up and saying who knows what's going to happen in 2025?
Well, it certainly was a flabbergasting end to the season where you had all kinds of chaos. We had a hurt kicker the final 4 weeks of the year. Now we find out after the season you had a hurt quarterback, and I have talked to several people. It doesn't seem like Kirk Cousins was the most forthright of quarterbacks when asked about his health. The team apparently kept asking him, are you okay? Are you okay? And he kept trying to work through some things, and it culminated in him just being absolutely awful. A stretch of one touchdown and 9 interceptions in a 5-week span, which really put the Falcons in a bad place. They started off 6-3, and then after all of that, you switch quarterbacks, put in a rookie, and all you have to do is win your final 2 games of the season, and you automatically punch a ticket. They lose in overtime at Washington after Michael Penix Jr. takes the team down the field on the final play of regulation. And then they have an embarrassing loss, the final game of the season, where they still had a chance to get in at Tampa lost, and Tampa didn't win that game until about 30 seconds left on the clock, their final game. And Michael Penix took them down on the final drive and sent them to overtime, and then you give up 44 points to the Panthers. So people are frustrated. They flat out want defense to be a priority when the last 4 years Terry Fontenot has invested assets on the offensive side of the ball, and Michael Penix Jr., Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Now they want some defense. They want an edge rusher, and they want somebody immediately to come in and help the Falcons' defense.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, joined on the phone by home team Brandon League 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Does the city of Atlanta really feel it when NASCAR comes to town? 125,000 people making their way to that venue. I know a lot of people make their way into downtown Atlanta every single day or every single week or month for big time events. But when 125,000 come in, how much of a stress and strain does that put on the city?
Not a lot. We're an international city, brother. We do Olympics, we do Super Bowls, we do Final Fours, we do national championship games. You name it. We are about to do the World Cup next year for semifinal action. This is an international city set up for any kind of function or venue, and the folks who get a chance to stay in the Atlanta or the surrounding areas before they go down to Atlanta Motor Speedway, they get a chance to see the other sights and sounds of Atlanta, where the Atlanta Braves play, where our studios are in the home of the Braves at 680 The Fan, is the Battery Atlanta, where they have a setup for you to go get something to eat, go play some games. Great place for families. So there are plenty of people that come to Atlanta Motor Speedway and other events. They get a chance to sample and slice what Atlanta really is.
Brandon, when it comes to the Atlanta Braves, you mentioned a couple of important pieces that will not be in spring training and it won't be starting the season with the 2025 squad. As a lifelong Brave fan, I've kind of, come to grips with this season being, who knows what's going to happen, right? We just don't know after last year. A lot of ups and downs, a little bit of a roller coaster year when it comes to what the Braves were able to do. You guys cover a lot closer than we do in terms of being right there in the battery that you talked about. What are, I guess, realistic expectations? What are realistic expectations when Braves fans look at this season and what's to come and where their mind should be?
Well, realistically, if people stay healthy, to be in the National League Championship Series, most likely facing off against the Dodgers. This is a really good team. It was unbelievable the amount of injury that took place. I mean, if you look at what you lost last year, when you talk about Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Michael Harris at different points, you're talking about losing a Cy Young Award winner, a Rookie of the Year in the National League, and an MVP. All gone. And now all of those guys will be back. If those guys are back out on the field, you've got a chance. And we're still waiting for the breakout year from Austin Riley, who looked like he was poised to have that, but then he gets hit in the hand and cannot come back from the injury. And you're just dealing with a case where you just had to piece things together, piece lineups together. So I don't think Braves fans, the Braves aren't saying it this year, World Series are bust, but they do know if they can stay healthy, they can play, they can hit, they can pitch with anybody in the National League and anybody in the world of baseball.
He is Home Team Brandon Leak. Look him up and find him on Twitter at Home Team B Leak. Home Team B Leak. Definitely worth a follow. We appreciate your time every single time we bring you on. Excited to have you on again to talk NFL Draft, Braves, all things there and above as well.
Anytime, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time.
That's good stuff, man. On the Braves front, we hadn't spent a lot of time there because, spring training underway, not a ton of storylines, but that he hit on it. That's been the frustration. As a fan, the Braves have just been unfortunate as of late. You can't do anything about health, Diesel, right? When guys go down, when Austin Riley gets hit in the hand, when Acuna, I don't even say it, when Acuna gets hurt, you can't do anything about it. It's nobody's fault, but it is very frustrating, and it seems like the Braves have just kind of been bit by the injury bug the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's some teams that somehow find a way to just insulate themselves from all of that. You just don't see a Shohei Ohtani caliber player just go down with being hit in the hand on a high pitch inside. It just doesn't happen.
Sounds bad for me to ask this, but I'm going to do it. I don't wish injury on anyone, but if you are a team that's been hit with the injury bug like the Braves have, can we send that freaking bug somewhere else? I mean, can we take that bug and put it in a shipment container and send it to L.A.?
That's a very easy thing to do. Have they thought about saging the clubhouse? I mean, that's a thing, right? When you buy a house, you're supposed to burn some sage in the house. It's supposed to expel all the bad spirits. Man. Offer some rum and a cigar to Jobu. I don't know what you got to do.
I just frustrate. I know to Brandon's point, they should be able to, if they stay healthy, they should be able to compete and maybe make that NLDS with the Dodgers. But gosh, man, it's just every year you just I'm just waiting. Let's say middle of April, late May. There's somebody that's very important on this Braves roster is going to get hurt. It feels like that's part of the script as of late. Man.
It also begs the question: where's the depth? Where's the depth among this team?
Well, your stars go down though. I mean, you're talking about Austin Riley, who's maybe a future Hall of Famer. It's just the stars.
But in theory, everybody's dealing with injury, right? Everybody's going to have to take a couple weeks off here and there.
I hope the Dodgers deal with it. God, come on.
I mean, then it, I know it's why are they so snake bitten? It's not like it's strength and conditioning kind of injuries. It's just bad luck. And how does one team get more of it? Who didn't pick their feet up when they drove past a graveyard on the last road trip?
I want some more luck. I need a little luck as a Braves fan.
When we come back, Cole, we get into purely subjective territory. Looking forward 5-10 years from now, who's going to be the better program? South Carolina, Clemson. We're talking about football, of course. That conversation coming your way next on the Fan Upstate. You know, Cole, great sports talk is filled with hosts who have takes that they will not back off no matter how much the listeners say they're wrong, that they're idiots. Rob's taking it on the chin in the text line here. We got the sign behind me that says wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. We spent some time talking about that with Brandon Leak and in the segment before, Cole. Texter says wins don't matter. Spoken like a true Saints fan.
Ooh,
Rob,
man, shots fired.
Maybe that'll change with Kellen Moore. Another texter says wins and losses not a QB stat. What about at contract time? It definitely is a stat then. Texter says this comes from Brandon Burnett. That poster needs to be took down taken down. But if a quarterback cannot pass on a team or throws 4 picks, it's his fault. Another texter says wins and losses are not a quarterback stat unless you're a winner. Then it's definitely a stat. Rob is just getting pummeled.
I love it.
In the
It's
text
good,
line,
man.
but it's okay.
That's why
right?
I put the poster there.
He put the poster there. He's not backing down off of that. There's takes that I've had, Cole, that I will not back down off of no matter what. Such as every NFL team needs to have a closable roof. Doesn't need to be closed all the time, but it needs to be closable.
When are you going to get a poster made with it?
I don't have the kind of money that Rob Brown has. He's
Yeah,
working
nobody
mornings,
does.
man. You get paid extra. You get paid like an extra $1 an hour just to work that morning show shift.
Get up in the morning
Yeah,
and brush
so
your teeth.
he's got it where I don't have it, and that's strictly in the wallet. Okay, I'm not talking about other things. Immunity from saying that out loud.
Promo.
Yeah, wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos, welcome into the show. We've had a good one so far. Here, I want to put our prediction pants on, Cole. I don't know if you wore your special prediction pants today. I did. They're just my plain gray slacks. I do my best thinking when I'm wearing these. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, who's going to be the better program? Who's going to be in a better spot right then and there, right? I'm not asking who's going to have the greatest history by that point. I'm saying who's going to be the best program right then, right there at that time between South Carolina football and Clemson football. Cole, it seems like we could go very deep on this topic, and it's not strictly a function of ratings and rankings when it comes to recruiting, but that's certainly a big part of it.
So are we asking 5 to 10?
5. Well, I'm just thinking like at some point in the future.
Okay.
Maybe 5 years is a little too short-sighted. Let's go 10 years.
10 years?
10 years from now, in 2035.
Yeah.
Will Clemson be the better program, or will South Carolina be the better program?
So, again, it's a loaded question, right? I think there's so many factors there. The first thing that I ask, and that you, Tolo, should ask as well, is which conference will Clemson be in, right? I mean, doesn't that matter more than – I don't want to say that matters more than who the coach is or the program's success or, all these little things, but that's 3, but it does matter, right? Because – what conference you play in is a big part of your success. And so if you're asking me to look 10 years from now to 2035 and you told me Clemson is still in the ACC, guess what? I would say, based on what I've seen from the past 20 years, Clemson will be in a better spot because of the inferior competition week in and week out. Now, if you told me that Clemson 10 years from now, Diesel, would not be in the ACC, my answer may change. I have been very bold and very bullish on South Carolina. I like where they are. I like Shane Beamer a lot. You know that. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a fantastic coach, and I think he's leading the program in the right way. And I think they made a fantastic hire with Shane Beamer. But where you are matters, man. The SEC, they were down last year. Were they? Were they down? Are they going to be down 10 years from now? The portal, NIL will continue to be in existence, Diesel. So it's a fascinating question. If you told me Clemson's going to stay in the ACC, I'd go Clemson. But I also love Shane Beamer's approach to the portal. I think that he recognizes that he has to coach his roster year in and year out. And, South Carolina with the portal usage and NIL, could they up their game? I think so. I think Garnet Trust in South Carolina has been a big help, but I think that when it comes to NIL, I think South Carolina in the SEC still has a long way to go.
T. Swizzle says, not sure Dabo will be there in 10 years. Very valid point. He's 55 years old. Obviously, 10 years from now, he'll be 65. Will Dabo still be at Clemson? It's not unheard of
What do you
for
think?
coaches.
10 years from now.
10 years from now, I genuinely don't believe that Dabo Swinney is headed to the NFL. So we can
No, I'm with you there.
probably knock that one off the list of future possibilities. Will he just say, you know what, enough is enough at, like, say, age 60, which would be 5 years from now? He could. It depends on
10 years
what
is-
scratches
yeah.
his competitive itch, right?
10 years is interesting.
Yeah, that is. And
Oh,
Shane
man.
is what, 47, 48? I don't know how old Shane Beamer is.
So you think 10 years Dabo will still be there?
I do. Shane's 47, by the
Okay.
way.
I-
So
I
Shane
think
at 57 years old.
I
10
think
years from now.
it's close in terms of 10 years. Like you said, Dabo's how old? 55?
He's 55.
55. I agree with you on the NFL thing. I don't think he's going there. And I don't know that he has his eyes on another job either. If you told me he went into some, other position with Clemson or
Athletic director one day, maybe.
or went into ministry or something that's really, important to him, I could see that. Or some other role, I could definitely see that. But I don't know. 10. That's a good question. I think I would lean.
Well,
yes.
Here's what I really want to dive into is, we know that Graham Neff is not going to pull any kind of a trigger and say, Dabo, you're not doing well enough. We're going to have to go ahead and let you go at this point, right? But what happens if 5 years from now, the ACC championships are fewer and farther between? What if the ACC, which we all believe needs to happen, comes up as a whole? Florida State all of a sudden rights its ship. Louisville continues to improve.
I wish they
You got
would.
North Carolina under Bill Belichick ends up being great. Just what if, right?
What if?
What if Syracuse and Fran Brown continue to improve, and Syracuse becomes a power like they were way back in the Ernie Davis days? So, like, what if, right? And it gets to be a tougher league for Clemson to win. How much of a long leash are they really willing to give Dabo Swinney? And 10 years down the line, if you're not winning titles, if it's just continues to be I'm not going to be in the portal, I'm not really going to recruit my own state the way that I should. See, that's another thing that I had intended to bring up. Shane Beamer's crushing it when it comes to recruiting the state of South Carolina. Dabo Swinney effectively doesn't recruit the state of South. I know that he gets players from South Carolina, but it's not his number one priority to build his team out of this state, right? The kids who grew up watching and loving Clemson and wanting to be a Clemson Tiger, he's not pursuing them and building his team that way. Shane Beamer is, and he's finding success at it. Dabo is taking a more regional and national approach. Well, as the Clemson brand continues to fade just a little bit, and as we are going through this portal and NIL phase of college football, I mean, doesn't it make it harder and harder and harder for Dabo to recruit the way that he wants to nationally, and then his base is completely eroded underneath him here in the state of South Carolina because he hasn't been effective and hasn't made a priority to recruit the state?
I don't see that happening. T Swizzle, though, does give one more to your what if. I like this one. T Swizzle says, what if Miami doesn't choke every year? I like that, T Swizzle. Michael on the text line, which you can text at 844-326-3663. Do like Kane did a couple of days ago and save that number in your phone. That way you don't have to rely on us to give it to you every day. Michael says, 10 years from now, Dabo will pull a Ray Tanner and be the AD. I don't know. Could it happen? Sure. Does Dabo have a desire to be the AD and oversee sports? Maybe so. I mean, I think he'd be a fine AD. But is Graham Neff going anywhere? I mean,
Graham Neff's a young guy.
Young guy. If he does really well, maybe some big boy comes calling Graham Neff and throws some money at him, right? I don't know, but I think it's interesting when you look at 10. You asked the question, 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. I just think that the most interesting factor about that question to answer it is, what does college football look like 10 years from now? Because you know what? If you and I were sitting here in this building 10 years ago in 2015 on the 24th day of February, I don't know that you and I would even begin to fathom or guess, much less predict what college football would be today, right? 2015, if you said Diesel, in 2025, NIL and the portal is going to be the wild, wild west, it would be hard to get a grip on it, know?
And to the multiple Tolos who have said, will Dabo Swinney even be around in 10 years? Let's say he's not. Let's say it's 6 or 7, like T. Swizzle says. I give him 6 or 7 more years. How much of a brand does Clemson have left 6 or 7 years from now when it comes time to hire the guy that follows Dabo Swinney? Right? I mean,
that's what they do in those next 6 to 7, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not in the AC, or if they're still in the ACC, all the best talent will chase all the most money at SEC schools. Can you find another coach who will stick around as long as Dabo Swinney did? Can you find another coach with as much talent as national elite level coaches have? And can you convince them to come to Clemson if you're not winning titles? And if you're constantly seeing your recruiting rankings slip year over year over year. I mean, it was a couple of years ago, Cole, they were teetering right there around number 10. Previous to that, they were top 5. Now Clemson's having a hard time scraping the top 25, and I get it. This year was a smaller class than usual.
Think about this, though. Diesel, whenever, whether it's 10 years from now or 15 years from now, whenever Clemson has to hire their next head football coach, it'll be the first time since 1999 they've really had to do like this grand search. Will there be someone on staff they hand the reins to? We don't know. But when Dabo Swinney was hired in 2008, guess what? He was on staff. They made a leap. They really went off of a gut feeling of Dabo Swinney being the right guy. They didn't have this national power coach come in 2008, Diesel, and take over. So it'll be interesting. I do think, to your point, though, what they do in the next 6 to 7 is very important. If you told me they go win one more national championship, to answer your question about will the brand still be there, I'd say if they win another championship or can continue to contend for them, absolutely. We all know that college football is a year-to-year league now, more than it's ever been. We talk about the NFL being year-to-year. Well, welcome to college football, where it's literally more of a year-to-year league because of what the portal and what NIL has done to the sport, right? The rosters look completely different. Ask Shane Beamer. His roster in 2025 is going to look a lot different than his roster did in 2024. So it'll be very interesting. I would lean Clemson, though, if you told me they're still going to be in the ACC. And to your point about the ACC getting better, please.
Yeah.
I mean, for goodness sake, Diesel. Florida State and Miami's good, but they're more talk than they are action. And I'd love for the ACC to get better.
Look, Clemson and Florida State, and I don't know if anybody else was a part of this, Cole. They're gonna get a little extra cash based on their performance with their settlement with the ACC to go ahead and put a stop to that thing. At least that's been the conversation. But does throwing a couple extra $1 million at Florida State fix the major problems that they have? And also, does that not just create a top-heavy league with 2 or 3 programs who get the most money from the conference, being heads and shoulders better than Virginia and Virginia Tech and Syracuse and Boston College? I mean, how do you even compete in your own league? See, not to go down this rabbit hole, Cole, but if you're upset that you can't compete with the SEC and the Big Ten for their money, and then you create a situation in your own conference where now the bottom half of your conference can't compete with the top half over money, then you've just shifted the problem from over here to over there, and you brought it into your own house.
In the very next segment, we do something that we've been doing for a few weeks now on Mondays. We call it Marketplace Monday Sports Memorabilia Edition, Diesel. You have a few items. I have a few items as well, and we'll see who can be the best guesser in this very next segment of what these crazy, non-crazy items are listed for. That's next. Hey, Tolos, anytime Diesel and I do a segment, we would love to hear from you. And in this very segment, we want to hear from you as well. A quicker version today, but we're still going to do our Marketplace Monday. Some items where Diesel and I guess when it comes to sports memorabilia right here in the upstate. I look up toward where I live. Diesel looks here in Greenville. And Diesel, I will let you go first on this week's edition of Marketplace Monday.
Okay, I've got 4 items. We might get to all of them. A retro South Carolina Gamecocks football mini helmet lamp. The mini helmet is on a 12 by 9 inch base. It's 18 inches tall. It says it's in, quote, working order. It's the you'd have to tell me what vintage era this is, but it's the red South Carolina Gamecock helmet with the white stripe down the middle and the 2 black stripes on either side of it. They don't appear to be like super straight on the helmet.
Yeah.
But what do you think this little retro helmet lamp is worth?
Helmet
selling
lamp.
for?
It's a lamp as well.
Yeah, it's a major award.
South Carolina Gamecocks. Not a leg lamp, by the way.
Not a leg lamp. No.
Mini
no.
helmet lamp. I don't know that I've seen a mini helmet lamp, but I would say South Carolina game. No signatures, no autographs.
No autographs.
I'd say $35.
Wow, you're getting good at this game. It's listed for $30.
$30.
It previously was $40. It's been marked down
Wow.
to $30. So look at Cole Bryson, right on the money.
Would you pay that, South Carolina fans, for for a mini helmet? Here's one that I have for you, Diesel. A Washington Commanders helmet. It's a Commanders, not Redskins, right?
Full size?
Full size.
Cool.
Full size. Signed sports helmet. It is, it has, let's see, I'm trying to see how many autographs. Looks like 1 autograph. Not more than 1, but 1 autograph. It doesn't say who it's by. This is a nice-looking helmet, but it is autographed by a Washington Commander, number 30. And this one's up towards Charlotte, a little ways.
Oh.
And you guess how much you think this helmet is going for.
So it's not a Jaden Daniels.
No, it's not Jaden Daniels.
So just some random player, number 30.
Yeah, if you wear 30, you're not important.
Yeah.
You know?
Willing to bet this thing is probably listed at $65.
You're very close. $75.
Wow,
So
look
look
at
at you.
us.
You're getting better at this. I don't know, like full-size helmets, I get it. I would want, if as a fan of the Cowboys or whoever it were to be of Diesel, I would want it to be someone pretty important, right? If you're going to pay for a helmet, I don't know that $75 with a number 30 on. I mean, what good players?
We also don't know
30?
if it's a game-worn helmet or if it's just a helmet. You know, if it's if it's a replica.
Yeah.
All right, Cole.
All right, your turn. Sorry.
Yep. How about this? An autographed Tennessee Volunteers magazine, autographed by Pat Summitt, but it's inscribed to Jack. It's like to Jack Pat Summitt on the cover.
To Jack.
It's listed as used like new condition.
Well, if your name is Jack, the value goes up there, right? Because if your name's not,
Legendary coach Pat Summitt. She had the frickin' floor named after her.
and you said it's a magazine.
Yes, it's a magazine. It's just called Volunteers Magazine, Tennessee Volunteers Magazine.
Autographed by Pat Summitt on the front cover.
front
I
cover.
would imagine that's it's worth a little bit. Pat Summitt's one of the greatest. Like Pat Summitt, is looked at as one of the best, maybe the first best, right? If that's a thing.
She was the standard bearer.
She was the standard.
She
in
created the
women's
standard.
college basketball.
Gio Auriemma, then Dawn Staley.
That's a cool item. I don't think it's too much. I'm going to go 115.
Way over.
Okay,
Way over.
I thought Pat Summitt might carry a little weight.
This
All
one
right.
is listed at $75. Would you pay $75 for Pat Summitt's autograph to somebody named Jack?
Would I? No. What am I going to do with it? What's it going to be worth? No. I've got one for you. This one is one of the more interesting finds. This is a Tom Brady signed mini helmet. Okay? It's a mini helmet. It is a Michigan Wolverines mini helmet.
Oh.
It looks cool. It is signed by Tom Brady, and it has with it, Diesel, a certificate of authenticity.
Right on.
Certified, authentic.
They're bona fide.
It's got the certification number. It's yellow, the yellow and blue that Michigan wears, and on the side it's Tom Brady, and with his number right there. And this is local. This is up kind of toward Fort Mill a little bit. So Tom has this, not Tom in Somerville. Tom has this on Facebook Marketplace for
$175.
that would be no. You'd be low.
I just figured low. What? I thought you were going to say I was way high.
No. You're low.
$500.
$500.
$500
Reduced
for Tommy's.
Reduced from Kane. You were way off. Reduced from
$1,000.
$1,000 for a Tom Brady signed Michigan helmet. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Would you-
$1,000.
Look, I love Tom Brady. Tom Brady's he's the greatest of all time.
I
in my
mean,
opinion,
you
but-
know, Cole. Sometimes you throw a lure out there and you hope something big comes and bites it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
throw
you're
the lure.
shocked when it actually does get hit.
Somebody might do it.
So, yeah.
You'd have to be, I believe, a diehard Michigan fan, a diehard Tom Brady guy. I wouldn't, as much as I love Tom Brady, I wouldn't spend $500.
It's mostly the Ohio State fans who move to the upstate, so I don't
Sure,
think you're going to
sure,
find
yeah.
too many of them around here.
That's right.
Cole, how about this? This is a 6-pack of the Clemson Orange Soda commemorative 1981 championship cans. There appears to be some discoloration around the rim of two of the cans, but I think, it's hard to tell, I think that's the little plastic ring, the little 6-pack ring holder, and it's got a little schmutz underneath it. So, yeah, it's a 6-pack of the Orange Soda Clemson commemorative cans. I know for a fact that my grandfather had a 6-pack of these cans. He also had some of the glass bottles as well, and he would collect just random. So he had a couple of North Carolina ones, even though he didn't, go to North Carolina.
Yeah, I have a Clemson bottle,
Yeah.
a Coke bottle, not the cans, though.
6-pack of the cans, though. You're supposed to punch a hole in the bottom of them and drain them because the soda inside will eat through
Really?
the can.
My
It'll leak.
My Clemson
eventually.
bottle still has the Coke in it, right? Obviously, it's glass.
6-pack.
6-pack. $120. Too high?
Way too high.
I was just thinking maybe 6.
I mean,
of them.
81
It's 6.
championship. It's that's a piece of Clemson history.
Okay, $48.
You got the right first number. $40.
$40. Okay.
$40.
I was way high the first time, like way high. But I don't know. Somebody would pay for it. I think there's a Clemson. I got one more as we roll to a break, and then we have Overreaction Monday coming up at 5 o'clock. Tolos, go ahead and get your overreaction ready from the sports weekend. A Miami Dolphins signed ball, limited edition. It has 3 or 4 signatures on it. Diesel. It is pretty cool looking. It looks old, right? It's an old ball, and it even looks game used because it's got brown, a little bit of brownish color to it, or it's supposed to be solid white. Condition is pre-owned, but it is in the regional box, and it has autographs from past players and champions. How much?
$80.
$125. So you weren't terribly far off.
Without knowing whose name is on it.
Yeah.
I mean, if Dan Marino's name on it, certainly that goes up.
That would matter, right?
But at the end of the day, people who are interested in Dan Marino autographs are slowly getting over the hill, and they're not buying this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. They don't have Facebook, right?
Gosh, they don't. When we come back, Cole, it is time for our Tolos to call in and sound off about something that happened in the sports world this weekend. Overreaction Monday is next. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson entering hour number 2. And here is your chance, Tolos, to get on the phone. Show us you've got a pair. Say again?
Hour number 3.
Hour number 3.
Okay,
This is going faster than I thought it was.
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah, your chance to get on the phone and show us that you have a pair like Kane has finally done. Kane told us a week ago, Cole, that he was going to call up and be a part of the show, and then he ducked us for a number of straight days, and it's about time he has finally called 844-326-3663. Your overreaction for a Monday. Kane, the floor is yours.
Hey, what's up, Coleslaw and Kerosene?
What's up?
How y'all doing?
Fantastic.
Good. Well, yeah, here I am. I don't really have much to overreact about.
Oh.
Well, you called the
but
show.
I
You just called in to say you don't have a whole lot to
work.
say?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, riveting.
Yeah, just want to say hi. Just want to make sure, you guys still love me.
We love you, Kane. Hi. Thanks for the call.
Hey, yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
I don't think I've ever had somebody call in to say they don't have a whole lot to say.
Great start to the Overreaction Monday, Diesel.
Yeah.
Why
So
what's
my
your name?
overreaction to the weekend, Cole, is that Clemson ought to be ranked higher than they are. I think Clemson ought to be sitting right there in that 11 spot. 13, I think, is a little bit low. I know they're in that march up the rankings. But Cole, considering what's going on around them with teams blowing big-time leads, Clemson doesn't do that this year. I think Clemson deserves to be ranked higher than number 13. That's my
I
overreaction
like that.
for the weekend.
No, I think so. Listen, I've said for, a month and a half now that they need to be ranked higher than they are. You're exactly right. They're a top 10 team. Come on. Let's call it like it is here. Clemson is a top 10 team in college basketball. They have proven that. They've done exactly what they're supposed to do this year. They haven't fumbled much. They obviously had one bad loss to South Carolina, a tough loss right before that on that Saturday to Memphis. But they've been fantastic. So I have 3 overreactions as well, Diesel. Want to hear your reaction to my overreaction. But first, let's see. Dewey wants to overreact on this Overreaction Monday. Dewey, what do you want to overreact about?
Yes, I got a couple things to say.
Okay.
First, I need to address Rick from Greer. I'm disappointed in you. I was actually starting to like you, but I don't like you no more. You owe me an apology.
Why?
Because he was mean. He said mean things.
What did he say? I can't
I
remember.
forget
Dewey.
what he said.
He sounds crazy, and I had screws loose. It's because I was dropping my head as a child, but me I had screws loose.
Was this on
That
Friday?
hurt my feelings.
Had to be on Friday.
But I went to church Sunday, and I forgive you, Rick from Greer.
Oh, so you're back on good terms.
Back
I
on good
like it.
terms.
I like when
That's
they
the way it should
bring
be.
people together.
It's not good terms. It's peace offering.
Okay. So does Rick have to accept the peace offering, Dewey?
Oh, I don't care if he does or not.
What if he calls in and says something nice about you next time?
Well, that'll be good too.
Okay. What was your second thing?
Secondly, South Carolina Gamecocks actually finally won the SEC game. Well, I got something. They're going to win. They're going to win the SEC tournament.
Oh, God.
And they're going to get in the AA tournament because of that. They're going to surprise everyone. Whatever Lamont is going to take his job seriously, and they're going to win the SEC tournament. And I got something for Clemson that's going to make Rick from Greer mad.
Okay.
Clemson, they're not only they're going to lay an egg in the ACC tournament, they're going to get knocked out in the first round.
Wow.
First round exit from the ACC.
The whole season's going to go to poop.
First round of the big tournament?
Both.
Oh, wow. Wow. How about that? Dewey, appreciate the overreactions on this Monday.
Hmm.
You got to get that man.
Yeah,
right?
he's got to get that.
Rick.
Kane said, no. Rick said that Dewey ate paint chips.
Oh, he did. He did say that on Friday. You're right. Sorry about that, Dewey. But you know what, man? I like the peace offering. Dewey's a man of the people.
What color do you think Dewey's helmet is? Just a helmet. That
I'm
he
not
wears
answering
on.
that question. I'm not answering that question. I'm not doing it. Diesel, I have three. The first one is I want my first overreaction. Sports weekend last weekend. Today I started shifting gears thinking about Clemson, South Carolina this weekend in baseball. I want Clemson and South Carolina to figure out, I don't know how because conference schedules are tough. I want Clemson and South Carolina to play later in the year in basketball and baseball, man. These early games are I don't want to use the word meaningless. They just don't mean as much. They don't hold as much weight. And in football, Clemson and South Carolina play at the very end of the season. It matters. That game matters, right? It matters to both programs regardless of how good they are. And in basketball, they play in early December, and it doesn't really matter, especially if South Carolina's not good. And then in baseball, they play the third series of the year, and I don't want to say it doesn't matter. Like you can't get in the tournament right now when it comes to college baseball. You can hurt your resume a little bit, but Diesel, I just don't feel like in basketball and baseball, the time of year they play is the best. I want these games to really have weight and meaning, and I want them to matter.
Well, it would certainly behoove Clemson and South Carolina to find ways to dominate as much of the sports calendar as they can by putting games throughout the season in all sports so that you don't go much more than about 5 or 6 weeks without Clemson and South Carolina playing each other at something.
Sure.
Right?
I like
so
that.
you got the one matchup there in football. There should be, you've got the 3-game series in baseball. I think they should spread that out over the course of the season.
Oh, really? You don't like the series?
I mean, look, I love the series. I think it's great, but you don't generally play multiple series against out-of-conference opponents. I mean, maybe you could convince these schools to play a 3-game series late in the season and have an early 3-game set and a late 3-game set. Maybe you could convince them to do that.
So you're saying maybe play Clemson, South Carolina maybe this week, midweek. It'd have to be midweek, right? It would have to be midweek games. That would be hard, though, because if there were midweek games, the attendance wouldn't. I don't know that the attendance would be there. I just want them to matter, man. I just want them to matter. And look, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Those 3 venues are going to be packed this weekend. Friday in Clemson, Saturday in Greenville, and Sunday in Columbia. They're going to be packed.
Well, why not have them do the Clemson, Greenville, Columbia tour as their first 3-game set, and then have the second 3-game set be Charleston, Columbia, Greenville, or Charleston, Columbia, Clemson, or Charleston, Columbia, Myrtle Beach.
It's interesting.
Essentially take a tour with the 2 biggest programs in the state all over the state, right? You want to plant that flag in Conway. That's the way to do it. Is to play a game right there in Myrtle Beach where the Myrtle Beach Pelicans,
I think.
were they the
I think
Pelicans?
so. I think that sounds right.
Something like that.
Sounds right. Yeah,
Have
sounds good
them
enough.
play a game there, have them play a 2-game series, a Saturday-Sunday series, one in Charleston, one in Myrtle Beach, and you don't have to play the third.
What is your overreaction, Tolos? 844-326-3663. Diesel, my second one is NASCAR needs to fix the rules of how cautions can impact the end of a race.
I think you could just stop right after NASCAR needs to fix the rules. Or NASCAR needs to stop trying to fix the rules. That's the big problem with NASCAR.
I don't know of
is
many
you
other
can't
problems, though.
Stop effing around with the rules.
But what rules, though?
All of them. The
Like
stages are dumb. Stages in NASCAR are terrible. You telling me we got to stop the race? Even what if a driver is having a dominant run, and he gets a good lap and a half lead early in the race? Screw that. Let's just bunch them all back up again. Let's ruin all the hard work that he's done over the course of the first. I hate stages. See, Cole, look, I know that we've got a lot of Tolos who love NASCAR, JD and Madcraft and Dan B and all them. I know they love NASCAR. I can't watch it. NASCAR has turned itself into an unwatchable sport. You know why? Because you've just arbitrarily decided, let's stop the race, bunch everybody up, we'll assign some points. Yeah, you get some points, you get some points, you get some points. But it's not racing. The whole point is to get from lap 1 to lap 200 as fast as you possibly can. And if you slow me down on purpose to bunch me up with other cars, I don't like it, man.
Well, I think the purpose of the stages is for the entertainment, being able to watch it, because if, let's say, Brad Keselowski gets out, a mile, half a mile on everybody, and he's just absolutely running roughshod, it's not really, entertaining from the fans' perspective. I think the goal of the stages was to get new fans involved so that you can see multiple restarts, because those restarts are where they're fun, right? When those drivers have to restart and you have that initial burst off. Look, I'm split. I understand the frustration of stages, but I think for me, I don't think NASCAR has a lot of rules right now that they need to fix. I think the biggest one is how they manage the end of a race when a caution comes out behind the lead drivers. They throw the caution, and it stops the race, basically. And it happened again yesterday. It happened in the duels on Thursday night at Daytona. I think you let them race. You let them run. And then Sunday, during the Daytona 500 a week ago, they didn't throw the caution at the end. So I just think that there's too much. Look, safety's a very important priority, right? They want the driver's diesel to be safe, but I also think that you've got to allow the race to finish. If the wreck is behind the lead drivers, don't throw that caution. Let them run. And that's my second one. The cautions at the end of the race are what bug me.
Kane, who didn't have a whole lot to say a few minutes ago, now he's got something to say. He says NASCAR is boring. Come at me, chat.
Well, either you like it or you don't.
Kane, you don't have to watch the whole race. NASCAR, you don't have to watch the race. You watch the last 20 laps. Oh, who's still in it? Ah, great. 20 laps, it's over. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know about the rest of it. And Dan says nobody's lapping anybody else anymore because the cars are all more or less equal. Well, again, how is that exciting? You've taken away the ability of anyone to dominate the race, and then if they are dominating the race, you slow them down and you bunch them back up arbitrarily based on, hey, every 100 laps we're going to have a stage. It's bad. They've completely screwed up NASCAR, and there's a huge reason why I don't watch it.
Oh, I think so. That goes back to my point. And last thing I'll say, I think you either hate or love NASCAR. Like, I think it's kind of like the Cowboys. You hate them or love it.
And I used to love it. Yeah, I used to love it.
But you know what? Their ratings, for those that don't like it, I think they're always going to be that way, because the ratings the last 3 years have seen a positive trend. So there's something that's getting new fans interested.
Positive trend based on what? The depths that they sunk to when they lost almost their entire audience, or positive trend based on where they had been at their peak?
Well, look, the reality is you want to gain new ratings every year, right? So if we have to, it's same thing with NBA. I mean, look at their ratings right now. If they have positive ratings, regardless of where they've been, I give the sport credit for that. I really do. You can find something to criticize NASCAR for. It's easy. They have things they have to figure out, but I also think it's a tough sport to make perfect as well. There's so many factors and variables. If I had to defend it for a second, I just think that those who like it, and those who don't will always not like it. I don't think they're going to ever turn back to like I don't know, Diesel, if you'll one day think, I don't think you're going to ever wake up and just have an epiphany and say, oh, I love NASCAR now. No, I think you'll probably always hate
probably
it,
not.
Right?
Not until they wipe the rule books clean and say, all right, you just go green to checkered flag.
You'd
green
watch
flag,
them, though?
flag. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'd probably get back into it.
I think it'd be a more boring race, because you just have drivers stuck way out in front.
I don't come from the ADHD generation where I have to have everything slammed together, going crazy right in front of my face to recognize what I'm watching is great.
I don't think eliminating the stages would bring more viewers. I really don't. But let's see what you Tolo say. Tom in Somerville. I know Tom's got a story. Tom, what's up, man? What's your overreaction?
Hey guys, hey. Lamont Paris and the boys are back, baby.
Oh God!
Hey, they took a little bit of a break, but man, they looked awesome on Saturday night. Absolutely awesome. Beat the tar out of Texas, and you know what? That wasn't even the highlight of my weekend, guys.
Here we go.
The highlight of my weekend was seeing Cole at the baseball game. And so, I saw Cole at the baseball game. We had a little conversation, even got a little bit of food. It was absolutely great.
Met Cole. The first time meeting you, Tom.
That's right. Yeah, man. I talk to you almost every day on the phone. It seems like I've known you so long. But man, met you at the baseball game. It was an absolute pleasure. It was a great time. Great to see the Gamecocks win. And man, the basketball team. I'll watch basketball again in November. That was the last time I'll watch them this year. It's going to leave a good taste in my mouth for next year. That was awesome. Gamecocks are still the best team in the state. And I'll say this weekend's about to be a whole lot of fun, guys. Clemson is really, really good. But, South Carolina, they hadn't played the competition yet. But I think they're going to have something up their sleeves for the Tigers this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Are you coming up for the game? Or are you coming up to the Floor Field game, Tom?
I would like to, but it is not set in stone yet.
Okay.
Well, I think Cole and I are both going to be at that game.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Should
hey,
be.
Diesel, make sure you tell Cole what you want to eat, because he will get it for you. He'll go up, he'll order it, and he'll bring you back a big old plate of food.
Thanks for that.
How about that?
Tom just ordered you free food.
Service with a smile.
Thanks, Tom. We appreciate you. Tom in Somerville. My last overreaction, Diesel, college basketball, we talked about it in the very first segment today. There may be a Cinderella. There may be a team, and that maybe we'll do that tomorrow or Wednesday, finding a Cinderella that we predict. I just think when it comes down to the two best teams, like make Duke and Auburn the national championship and be done with it. I'm sorry. That's my overreaction.
Go back to the
my third one.
BCS.
Just make those are the two best teams. I think Duke on any given day can beat anybody. Auburn just looks unstoppable. Georgia played them well on Saturday, believe it or not. But Broom's just freaking incredible. I mean, one of the best players in the game. And they look defensively, they look untouchable. They're so good defensively. And even though they don't play their best, they still find ways to win, and that's what's scary. I say, Diesel, just go ahead and make it. Call it Auburn-Duke National Championship. Let's watch it.
I think it'd be an epic basketball game. I don't know that either one of those teams – I don't know that both of those teams are going to make their way all the way through the tournament.
Tough.
I just hope that the powers that be put them on opposite ends of the bracket so that they can only meet in the national championship game. That would be – the best way to cap off this season. But who knows, Cole? Sometimes teams slip up. They trip up.
They do.
They stumble down the stretch, and maybe somebody else is going to get there.
We'll see. We shall see. Diesel, in the very next segment, Tom teased it, and we'll go there. Clemson had a big weekend. South Carolina had a big weekend. We dive into what happened on the diamond this past weekend for both Clemson and South Carolina. And for you fans out there, what are your thoughts on this Monday about the rivalry this weekend? It doesn't hold the same weight it does on the football field, obviously, but your thoughts initially on Clemson, South Carolina this weekend, that is next. a good weekend in the state of South Carolina, Diesel. When it comes to Clemson and South Carolina, the Gamecocks were able to break out the brooms. Clemson, a strong weekend as well, hosting an invitational and their home opener at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. And now, we talked about it in the very last segment briefly, both teams are scheduled to meet one another this weekend. Clemson 6-1 overall. South Carolina undefeated on the season, have not lost a college baseball game yet. But when you look at what they have done in this early part of the season, Diesel, we know that Tom mentioned it. Clemson's been tested. South Carolina has not been tested, right? Milwaukee wasn't really that big of a test for the Gamecocks this weekend. However, we can start with the Gamecocks. They've done exactly what they're supposed to do, right? They've taken care of business. And Paul Mainieri is off to a fantastic start. The Gamecocks, when you look at their season, they're 8-0 at home, and they've won some close games, which is a big part of where a team needs to be. 8-0 Gamecocks, a fantastic start. Diesel, you could not have scripted it any better when it comes to the hire of Paul Mainieri.
No, I mean, this has been fantastic for South Carolina. He's a calming presence. He brings in a lot of experience and the ability to write a program. I have no doubt and didn't have any doubts or reservations on his ability to do that. You know, we just wondered in this modern era of portal and NIL, how hands-on was he going to be with his players? And, you know, you can tell from the conversations that we've had with him, he genuinely loves and cares about his players. And it's going to be exciting to see these two teams face off. We're not going to know too much about either of them. We know a little bit more about Clemson given that 3-game series that they started off the season with. And the question is, how much does that matter this early in the season? Playing big-time matchups, how much does that matter?
You can go to thefanupstate.com to see my game story from Saturday in South Carolina's win over Milwaukee, Diesel. But in the lead of that article on thefanupstate.com, I started it off with a stat that's pretty bold when it comes to Paul Mainieri. South Carolina, Gamecock baseball has been around for 133 years. That's a long time, right? And 133 years of Gamecock baseball, Paul Mainieri was just the third head coach in program history to win his first 6 games leading the Gamecocks. Again, he was just the third head coach in program history to win his first 6 games. And now he 8-0 on the season, to your point. They had a fantastic weekend. They set some records as well. I mean, you talk about last week, Diesel. Winthrop, 5-3 win. Queens, they won, and they won the sweep, or got the sweep, rather, against Milwaukee. South Carolina has started the season 8-0 for the second time in the last 3 seasons. A few statistics on the Gamecocks. This pitching staff has 99 strikeouts and 69 innings pitched while holding opponents to a 148 batting average. Think about that. That's dominating right there. 99 strikeouts from the Gamecocks pitching staff and 69 innings holding opponents to a 148 batting average. South Carolina is 17 of 19 in stolen bases and are led offensively by Ethan Petrie's 444 average and 9 RBIs. So Ethan Petrie, a good start. Batting 444 on the season. Brendan Sweeney, he currently leads the SEC with 3 saves, picking up 2 this week and wins over Winthrop and Milwaukee. Sweeney has 3 strikeouts and has allowed 1 hit and 1 walk in 3 innings pitched. And Matthew Becker, he was phenomenal on Saturday in his second straight solid performance in the 6-3 win over Milwaukee. Becker struck out 8 batters. He did not allow a single walk in 6.1 innings pitched. Becker, through 11 innings, has 17 strikeouts with no walks and a 2-0 record with a 1.59 ERA. And then how about Jace Wyoda, a grand slam on Friday? That was the difference in the 5-2 win over Milwaukee. His 2-out shot in the left field in the 6th inning was his first hit as a Gamecock. Wyoda is hitting .357 and 6 RBIs, 3 runs scored. So South Carolina has Gardner-Webb midweek this week, Diesel. Then they prepare for the annual in-state series with Clemson. Gardner-Webb 6:30 on the 25th, which is tomorrow. That game's on SEC Network. But you talk about a lot of guys in this lineup, and this was a new lineup for South Carolina. 5 guys in the of the 9 and their opening day lineup were new faces. A new face in Pulmonary. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that you mentioned it, if the South Carolina-Clemson series this weekend will dictate how the season goes, but I think it's important. I mean, think about it. In basketball, South Carolina won, right? They beat Clemson in December, but Diesel, that game was not indicative of how the rest of the year went for either program.
At the very least, Cole, I think we should push this series back by about 2 weeks. Clemson doesn't get into ACC play until middle of March. South Carolina gets into SEC play probably roughly the same time. Yeah, March 14th. So why not play this series the weekend before you go into conference play?
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's plus, it makes the weather a little bit nicer. Those 2 weeks make a big difference. Probably warms it up just a little bit. Also, you get time to have your hitting develop. I mean, both of these teams, they have had games where they're breaking out offensively, scoring a lot of runs. South Carolina, they put up some big-time runs on Milwaukee in that 14-4 win. They put up 7 runs on Queens. They put up 8 runs on Sacred Heart, 14 runs against Sacred Heart. But for the most part, both of these teams are scoring in that, 4, 5, 6 range, playing like-level competition. Clemson put up a lot of runs on, Arizona in the second game of their season. But outside of that, 6 runs against Oklahoma State, 5 runs in the loss against Ole Miss, and they were run ruled in that game. So pitching seems to be, especially against weaker competition.
Yeah.
Pitching is outpacing hitting for both of these two teams. I think it just takes a little time for hitting, especially when you're playing against, major level pitching competition. So this is going to be the first time South Carolina's seen that. This will not be the first time Clemson has seen that. I'd be probably willing to lean a little more favorably towards Clemson in the series, but not by much. I mean, I think it's going to be a low scoring. You're talking about 6-5, 6-4 type of games, but I do give the slight edge to the Tigers just because they've already played a couple of those types of games.
And, also, to your point about offense, I think when it warms up outside, I think you'll see, hitting improve. It's been cold. South Carolina played a miserably cold game in the rain last week. You and I had it on right here in the studios, and it was brutal, miserable. I was talking to some of the beat writers Saturday at the game. They're like, Cole, they said, man, that Tuesday was as bad as I've ever seen weather for a baseball game. And there's no reason it should have been played. But Pulmonary wanted to play, man. He wanted to go through tough times with his team, and it was cold. It was raining, and I think once the weather warms up, I think both clubs will start to hit the ball better. I am interested, Diesel, Dylan Eskew, the Friday pitcher for South Carolina, he came out early on Friday and had some back tightness. And Pulmonary said on Saturday that it was not as bad as they thought it could have been. So that could have been detrimental. When you talk about South Carolina's baseball season, Dylan Eskew's their one. He's their ace. He's their Friday guy. And he went out early on that Friday game. But I don't know exactly. I haven't been told exactly when they expect him to come back. But getting him back is a big relief, considering you lost a pitcher in the offseason as well. But as far as Clemson goes, you mentioned the tough schedule, early in the season last weekend. 6-5 win over Oklahoma State, 16-5 win over Arizona, lit it up. But again, they were in a closed environment, right, in Arlington. They did have one loss to Ole Miss, 15-5, and that was my concern, was their Sunday arm. They pitched a lot of arms. They threw a lot of arms, if you will, against Ole Miss, and Clemson had an injury early in the season where their Sunday guy wasn't able to go, and he's done for the year. And then this weekend, Diesel, Clemson, 6-2 win over VCU, 12-7 win over North Carolina A&T. Let's see, a 4-3 win on Saturday night, the second game, 4-3 win over VCU, and then North Carolina A&T again on Sunday. They won 4-2. So both programs are off to a good start. It's so interesting when you look at these fan bases, because right now it's February. It's late February. To your point about pushing it back, I don't think these fan bases really get into it when it comes to college baseball until March Madness is over, Diesel. And South Carolina, obviously the men aren't going to be in March Madness, so they're invested. It was a good crowd Saturday there. It was cold, but when March Madness is over, you start getting more eyeballs. And then Texter brings up, let's see, this was from the 432. How about a shout out to Wofford for sweeping West Point? A big win for Wofford over Army this weekend in Spartanburg. That's right. They took 3 games from Army. And let's see, can't wait until we play Furman. Texter throwing shots there. Texter says, can't wait until we, talking about Wofford, plays Furman. Oh, wait, never mind. True, though. No Wofford Furman on the diamond. And then North Greenville also swept this weekend. They're off to a fantastic start. The number 1 ranked team, Diesel, in Division II baseball resides right here in the upstate. Number 1 in all the land, according to some polls in D2 baseball. So it'll be a lot of fun to see. I do think that you said on this Monday, you think Clemson has the edge. I predict Clemson sweeping on this weekend.
Ooh.
I predict
I won't go sweep. I'll go 2-1 series win.
2-1 series wins, what Diesel says. I'll go I think Clemson takes all 3. South Carolina's good, but I don't know that South Carolina has the firepower yet. Kennedy Jones is going to be good, though. Keep an eye out, Gamecock fans. We know Ethan Petrie's really good, and he right now has a .444 batting average, but Kennedy Jones has the potential to be really, really good. If he can get going, this lineup could be dangerous. But I think Clemson's firepower, led by Cam Canarella, and if Luke Gaffney can get going, I think they're going to be a dangerous team. And I'll go Clemson with a sweep. Diesel, I think Clemson this season has Omaha expectations. I really do. I think they have expectations of playing in Omaha. And, we're a long way between now and May. When the College Baseball World Series begins and the College Baseball Regionals begin, it's a long time, it feels like. But I think that's an Omaha or bust type team that Clemson has. As long as they stay healthy, right? We talked about it with Brandon Leak earlier in the show, how important it is for your team to stay healthy. As long as Clemson stays healthy, I think they've got a very good shot to go to Omaha. But
Tolos, what do you think? Who's going to win this series? Text in 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. It's the same number now that you both call in and text in. We'd love to get your thoughts on this series this coming weekend. It's it's something that I wish we would see multiple times throughout the season. I know people have talked about potentially breaking the series up instead of having it be a 3-game-in-a-row stretch, to have it be 3 games broken apart over the course of the season. I'm not sure that's the right idea. I'd say just play it again. Run it back. How about a 2-game series later on in the season? A little Friday-Saturday action. Once in Myrtle Beach, once in Charleston. Why not spread the love to the entire state? When we come back, Cole, it's time to see what else is going on out there in the sports world. Our Daily Wires, our Sports Blitz, coming up next. Cole, it's a good thing we gave ourselves a little extra time here for the Daily Wires because there is a ton going on in sports today.
Big
this
weekend.
is our Daily Wires. The buzz happening in the sports world. The Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid are consulting doctors considering alternative options such as surgery for Joel's injured left knee. Both sides have hoped for progress in his condition, but it really just doesn't seem like that's going to be the most effective thing. They've been doing regular injections, and it has not led to any improvement. Do you think that's like in the movie Varsity Blues, where James Vanderbeek walks into the locker room and they're putting a cortisone injection into the running back's knee?
Maybe so. Look, I don't know. Joel Embiid has the potential, and Diesel sometimes can be the best player on planet Earth. But for a guy who's 30 years old and was drafted in 2014, he hasn't panned out. And look, I'm not hating on him. You know, I like the NBA. I wish he was good. Philadelphia wishes he was good. Philadelphia, I mean, you're talking about a starved fan base. He just hadn't panned out. I don't know that Philadelphia and Joel Embiid will ever get to a championship, but we'll see.
Not everybody lives up to their, tippy-top full potential, Cole. University of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, considered to be one of the top 2 players at the position of quarterback in the NFL draft, will not work out at the scouting combine in Indianapolis. I think it's kind of a big deal, Cole, because it's just another guy opting out of the process, saying, I don't want to be a part of this, saying, I don't want to potentially hurt my draft stock. What if you could help your draft stock? I just don't understand the it can only hurt me mentality that a lot of people have towards this.
Like I said, I think the first segment or early in the show today when we talked about this, you know, if the experts in the room were telling us that the combine was a big deal, I'd be with you, but I just don't know that it's necessary. As long as he does something, I'm good. But then again, we've asked this question before. Kane asked it earlier in the show. Would he even be a top 2-3 quarterback in the draft if his last name was different, Diesel?
Yeah, you know, I look at it like it can expose you if you're not as good as people think you are, if the hype that's been built up around you.
Maybe that's why.
But, you know, Cole, like I considering how many quarterbacks, especially even first-round quarterbacks, end up being busts, I would like to have all the possible information I could have on a guy, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way, and they get their own controlled practices. Veteran linebacker Shaq Thompson says that he wanted to finish his career as a Carolina Panther, but the Panthers are moving in a different direction. They informed Shaq that he is free to enter free agency. Dan Morgan said in a statement today, quote, "We appreciate Shaq's leadership and dedication over the past 10 seasons, always a source of passion and enthusiasm. He was committed to this organization on and off the field, poured that into his teammates, and strived to bring out the best in them. We wish Shaq the best as he moves forward with his career." Right move or wrong move, letting Shaq Thompson walk.
If he wasn't 30, I think they'd reconsider it. 2015 first-round pick is what he was for the Carolina Panthers. Ultimately, I think it's the right move, big picture.
This team needs to get a lot younger.
They need to get younger. Look, he played in the Super Bowl as a rookie with Luke Kuechly, Diesel, and Thomas Davis, so he's been around the block, and it feels like a long time since the Panthers were in that Super Bowl. I think they made the right move. I like Shaq Thompson. He's a fantastic player, but I do think they made the right move.
It's okay. They'll sign him again in the future for a one-day deal just so that he can retire as a Carolina Panther. The Cleveland Browns are releasing starting safety Juan Thornhill with 1 year remaining on his 3-year deal he signed in 2023. The move will save the Cleveland Browns $3.4 million in cap space. Thornhill's $2.5 million base salary in 2025 was not guaranteed. So goodbye, Juan Thornhill. The Saints are hiring former Los Angeles Chargers head coach Brandon Staley as their defensive coordinator. Big deal, little deal.
You know what? Not a bad hire. I remember when Brandon Staley Diesel was supposed to be the, you know what?
Yeah.
The bleep. He wasn't. Ex-Chargers head coach. He's a good coach. And you know what we say a lot of times? Maybe some of these guys are better coordinators than they are as head coach. I think from Kellen Moore's perspective, I think it's a decent hire.
People are always promoted one level higher than their competency. You know, you get to where you are by being good at what you do, and then sometimes that next step is just a step too far.
He was Staley last year was with the 49ers, I think, for 1 year. I think he was just on staff. He wasn't the DC, but I think he was just on staff.
Cole, wild story here for you. IU Indianapolis college basketball team lost all of their gear in a bus explosion on their way back from a game in Kentucky. The team evacuated their bus before it burst into flames. They left behind jerseys, clipboards, personal belongings. There's a video out there. I haven't watched it yet, but there's a video that shows the intensity of the fire. Again, they were able to get everybody off the bus, so everyone is safe. But the team is determined to continue playing with the help of donations. So hopefully, you know, even if that means they got to play the next game in practice jerseys, because it takes some time to turn those around and get those back quickly. Obviously, we hope that those kids get to finish out their season up there at IU Indy.
That's a story I never thought I would hear, but things happen.
It's only going to get wilder from here, Cole. Denver Broncos outside linebackers coach Michael Wilholt was arrested for allegedly assaulting a police officer at Denver International Airport. Michael's 38 years old. He was charged with second-degree assault and taken to Denver County Jail. The incident occurred in a parking garage.
Not good. Not a good look, I don't think. I don't think you're supposed to assault. Nah, I wouldn't recommend that.
It was originally reported, Cole, that an unnamed team proposed banning the tush push play from football, but it's since been revealed that it was the Green Bay Packers who proposed the new rule change to the competition committee.
That is funny.
Good rule, bad rule. Look, it's cheating. The play is cheating, and I think it's time to get it out of the game.
I like it.
You
I like it. I think
you just like watching men touch other men's butts.
No, I never said that. I don't know that. Is it cheating? I don't know. You know, the leverage is the biggest thing, right? The leverage they have as an offensive line. But you know what? I don't know. The Green Bay Packers, I guess they got beat by the Eagles twice, I believe we heard earlier on the Rich Eisen show. But you know what? I think one day it will be banned. I think it will be. I don't think it should be, but I think it will be.
The Philadelphia Eagles have declined their invitation to visit the White House following their Super Bowl 59 victory. It sparked a lot of backlash and criticism from conservative commentators. The decision reportedly came after internal discussions within the organization, with a source confirming that the response to the invitation was a firm no.
No.
And lastly, Cole, because, well, we need more leagues out there, Shaun White's got a new half-pipe league, the Snow League, that will kick off in Aspen, Colorado next week before traveling to China, back to Aspen, and then to Switzerland for its opening season. The league aims to bring together top riders from all across the world. They have a substantial prize pool of $1.6 million. It's going to feature head-to-head, best-of-3 bracket-style tournaments on the halfpipe and free skiing events as well. So, yay, more leagues.
No is all I can say to that.
I love snowboarding. I love going out and going snowboarding. But, man, it's tough to just sit and watch like an hour and a half of a snowboarding competition.
Yeah, really
it's not easy to watch because it's like these guys are doing stuff that's so absolutely ludicrous that I can't even fathom what they've just done.
Diesel, we dive back into the college basketball conversation. We have audio from Brad Brownell. We have audio from Lamont Paris after the big SEC win. And we'll dive back into the AP Top 25. All of that and your reactions. Tolo's final hour of the show next.
All right. So all the players and all the coaches are probably writing down all the things that they did differently today from their normal routine. Just used a different pillow when they went to bed last night. New pair of shoes. That's what I did today. Actually, this is the first time wearing these shoes. So players probably did a lot of things too. I think everybody probably took note of those things. But anyway, feels good. Feels good for to see the guys be able to rejoice when they've been yearning to do this so many times. They've been on the doorstep so many times.
Diesel Lamont Paris elated, and a new pair of shoes is all it took for the Gamecocks to get their first SEC win. Lamont Paris should have got that new pair of shoes, a little earlier in the season, but he's right. You win. So many times this season we talked about Diesel, South Carolina basketball not having SEC win. The crazy thing is they've played teams well. Like, they've been in close games.
Yeah, their home schedule has been a whole lot of one-possession losses.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you look at yourself and you ask questions of what went wrong? What did we do? Why can't we finish games? I mean, didn't they? I could be wrong. Let me look to make sure I don't sound like an idiot. I think they played Auburn real well. I think 66-63. You're talking about the number one team in the country, Diesel, back in early January, on January the 11th. So this team, they've had some close games. You mentioned the 1-point loss to the number 5 Florida Gators. It just, the puck hasn't fell right for the Gamecocks. But that was Lamont Paris, and a short snippet of his presser, of his opening statement after South Carolina gets their win over Texas, their first SEC win of the year. Diesel, we talked about Clemson in the very first segment when it comes to what their schedule looks like. You and I talked about it last week. SMU was a big test. And what did Clemson do on Saturday versus SMU? They jumped out to a huge lead. Clemson looked like one of the best teams in college basketball, like they were supposed to. Clemson taking care of business on the road, Diesel, I think was a message sent to college basketball when it comes to, hey, look, we know that we play in the ACC, and it sounds crazy to say we're not the best conference, but when we need to show up, we can do that. They did on Saturday.
Yeah, they've looked dominant for long stretches down the season. They had that 8-game win streak. You drop one. Now they're on a 6-game win streak. It's unlikely. Excuse me, I think they're on a 4-game win streak. It's unlikely that they're going to drop any of the remaining 4 games. I think 3 games they have left on the schedule. So Clemson is in all likelihood set up to end the season on a very long win streak. And it's because they're playing good basketball right now. I mean, there's nothing to be said for it. They play extremely good defense. They rebound well. They get scoring from all over that roster. In that game against SMU, the best team that was left on their schedule, they had 4 out of their 5 starting players score in double figures. You're talking about a good team when you can spread the wealth. It's an unselfish brand of basketball. It starts with Ian Shefflin and his ability to, as JD said earlier in the show, basically play quarterback for the team. He is an elite level passer. And, man, they're going to miss him next year when he's gone. But take advantage and hopefully keep this thing going as long as you can in the NCAA tournament so the Clemson fan base can get a lot more chances to see him play because he is really, really good. Now, this team's going to look very different next year.
It is.
A lot of guys are going to move on. But Brad Brownell has shown his ability to go out there and get great players out of the transfer portal. And if he needs to go and get 1 or 2 guys next year to keep this thing rolling, I think he's certainly earned my trust in his ability to go out and do that. But, yeah, the way Clemson's playing down the stretch really is impressive.
And yeah, you're right. The roster next year is going to look a lot different. I mean, we said, you and I did a year ago, that, hey, next year's going to be weird. You're losing P.J. Hall, one of the best Clemson basketball players ever. So Brad Brownell, what does he do? He goes in the portal and gets Victor Locken. And Victor Locken, I mean, he only had 16 points and, 8 rebounds, whatever he had Saturday versus SMU. He's turned out to be really good. So to your point, I do think Brad Brownell, Diesel, deserves a ton of credit. And there were people, including myself, over the past 8 years, it feels like, who are critical of Brad Brownell. But, man, that portal, that has changed the game for Clemson when it comes to basketball. He's used it effectively. And here's what he had to say in his opening remarks after the 79-69 win over the Mustangs.
Yeah, terrific win for our team. Helps when you shoot the ball as well as we did. Obviously, you don't make 14 threes that often, but I knew our guys were locked in. I thought, we had a week. So we took Monday and Tuesday and really just worked on ourselves and took off Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday had really good practices leading into this game, and thought we played with great energy and pretty good attention to detail. Certainly their rebounding was a factor, but our ability to shoot the ball and share the ball, obviously 24 assisted baskets is terrific. So I just thought we played a very clean game and beat a very good team today.
Coming into today, Jaden hadn't made a ton of threes. I think he made his first six.
First five.
What got into him today?
Yeah, I don't know. He got a lot of open looks. Obviously, some of it is, teams have guarded Chase a little differently. Sometimes they're face guarding. When you do that, that opens up a lot of space for other players. And so maybe that was part of it. I need to watch film to see exactly why he got so many, but he can do that. He's more than capable of making 5 threes in a game. He's a good older player. Obviously, his line today was terrific. 7 assists. 4 or 5 steals, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. I mean, the guy was unbelievable today.
And you know what? Brad Brownell right there in that postgame audio talked about an older guy. Diesel, before we get to the AP Top 25 that was released earlier today, when you talk about Clemson, I said it in the very first segment, they're a contender this season in my mind because of their experience. They've got guys who have been around the block. They've got guys who understand what it takes. And when I watch college basketball, Diesel, at any level, sometimes, like I'll go to local games here and watch teams in the SoCon. When you see teams that when they get the basketball in their hands, they know what to do with the ball. That's good coaching, and that's veteran players. Clemson doesn't ever look lost, right? You'll see sometimes teams get the ball and they're running the set, and then they're just they look lost, right? Lackadaisical. Clemson looks they look like they have such a strong identity on offense, and I just think that goes back to coaching.
Well, it appears, and it helps when you have a veteran team like this, when no defensive set surprises you, when you're so well coached that you know how to handle whatever defensive set they throw at you, and you don't need a whole lot of time to figure it out, right? I mean, the shot clock isn't very long, and with Clemson, they've clearly shown their ability to use the entirety of the shot clock. They're not afraid to let it get down under 10 seconds before getting a good shot off. Doesn't mean every single shot is a good shot, but I think the vast majority of the time they do a good job of that. So their ability, to diagnose defenses, figure out their sets, and do it quickly and do it accurately makes them, what they are, one of the top 15 teams in America.
And
it's great to see them, take another 5-position jump this week.
Their 5, Diesel, that they put on the floor are just tough. Like Saturday, Ian Shefflin had 10 points. He does so much with the ball, though, that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. He's a great passer, great vision, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. 2 of those were offensive rebounds. Victor Locken, 16 points. Dylan Hunter, you mentioned earlier, didn't have the best day, only 2 points, but Jaden Zachary made up for that, 19 points. Chase Hunter, 17 points. Their starting 5 is strong, and I think that depth is important, Diesel, when it comes to March Madness and making a run. There's no doubt about it, but I think Clemson's got as much firepower across the board when it comes to the 5 guys that walk out there on the floor. It's impressive. Now, the AP Top 25 was released, and Clemson, they did move up 5 spots, Diesel. So a big leap. Now 13 in the country in the AP Top 25, 14 in the coaches poll. Getting respect. We talked about it in the very first segment. If they'll make the top 10, it's going to be close, right? I believe you said it'd be too close because of the little amount of games left. Texas Tech's 10 right now at 21-6. Clemson 22-5. I don't know that they do. I think they can make the top 10 when it's all said and done. But you look at the AP top 25 that came out today, it's as strong as ever. There's some really good basketball teams.
It's really good, and I love seeing St. John's up there. I love seeing Rick Pitino back up there. It's going to set up for a really good tournament where it's a lot of the big brands and a few really good mid-majors, Cole, that have a chance to play spoiler and maybe make a deep run. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I do need to point this out, okay? So we had one of our daily wires that a Tolo on the text line is questioning the veracity of this tweet. It was the tweet or the story of the Philadelphia Eagles declining the White House invitation with an emphatic no. And the texter says, false info, guys, on the Eagles and the White House. It came out earlier that those reports were not true. Offer hasn't even been made yet. Texter, we use a nationally recognized, essentially aggregator of all things news that helps us keep track of trending topics. Now, this seems to be a developing story. I'm now trying to search the National Registry or just Google search all these different outlets who are all talking about this in their various different ways. Yahoo Sports is in on this, Newsweek, let's see, Athlon Sports, Front Office Sports. There's a bunch of them, right? And it's hard to know exactly what the truth is here with regards to this story. Multiple, like Yahoo Sports is gigantic, and they're one of the most trusted news sources out there. They are saying that the Eagles have declined the invitation. Front Office Sports, which is a big outfit, is newer, but it is growing, says that the reports were untrue, that they have not been invited yet. I don't know how this thing is going. It's maybe one of those we want to preemptively say, no, we don't want to go before the invitation even comes. So if the invitation comes out and they reject it, it's hard to say, man. It's a contentious story of what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't know if it's one individual inside of the organization who leaked out some information that maybe higher-ups didn't want put out there. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's weird. Diesel, I do find interesting, though, when you look at the top 25 that was released today, let's just take a look ahead into the future. When it comes to March Madness time, we talk about teams that make the Elite Eight, like Clemson did last year. Only 8 teams get in. I don't know if you know that or not, Tolos. Newsflash, only 8 teams get into the Elite Eight. I wonder if the SEC's dominance of the regular season will translate into the Elite Eight. If it were to, Diesel, would you say that the SEC, it's been historically dominant, maybe the best it's ever been in college basketball this year, the SEC has. For that to translate, they'd have to have at least half, in my mind. If they only ended up having 2 of 8, let's just throw that out there.
That's not dominance.
That's not dominance in the postseason, right? So here's what's interesting about this story with the SEC. We've talked about their dominance all season long. It's been incredible. But does their dominance in the postseason change? And if so, how does that affect what the narratives were in the regular season? Because to your point, if we get to the Elite Eight and there's only, let's say, 2 or 3 SEC teams, that's not really dominant to me. Right now, you have Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, Bama. In the top 10, that's 4. And then outside of the top 10, you have A&M, Missouri, you have Kentucky, and that is right now 7 teams. 7 teams of the top 25 that are in there, or 7 teams in the SEC that are in the top 25. It's been brutal. It's been a gauntlet. But I don't know. Will that translate to the postseason?
I think it could certainly poke holes in the narrative. Certainly the narrative has been the SEC is so good. It's head and shoulders better than everybody else. And there's a lot of truth to that. I'm not denying that there is. But if they ultimately don't perform in out of conference postseason when everybody's good, look, I think the SEC teams that ultimately do make the tournament are going to be set up really well to play well. They've been playing the best of the best night in and night out over the entire course of their season. I mean, Texas A&M, look at that. They're number 11 in the country. They're 1-5 against AP top 10 teams. I don't think Clemson has played 2 top 10 teams all season, have they?
They played Kentucky. I don't know if Kentucky was top 10 when they played them.
Right. Kentucky's not top 10 now. I mean, so Clemson certainly hasn't been tested in that way. If you want to compare them to Texas A&M, who's just a couple of spots ahead of them in the top 25. So I think playing a tough regular season schedule sets you up to be successful night in and night out because you are playing the absolute best. You don't get a night where you play top 5 Duke and then the next night you're playing a sub 500 Virginia, and you can kind of take the night off.
Tolos want to let you know that you can text the show 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. But, Diesel, before I tell you about the American Legion Icon program, we do have a longer interview in the next segment. Brandon Leak, 680 The Fan, joined us earlier. That was fantastic stuff, as always. We enjoy talking to him. That is coming up next, right here on the Fan Upstairs. Diesel, have you seen the new poster that is in the Fan Upstate studios as of this morning? It is behind you on the wall, and I got a text message about it this morning because Rob Brown put this up, and I was unable to comment on it. I didn't see Lonzo's text, but evidently there was a big discussion about this morning on the Rob Brown show. So let's talk about it.
You know what? In case people don't know, I'm going to slide out of the way.
There you go. Now they can see it.
I'm going to, sorry,
it's not the best.
Quality webcams showing you, it says, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat.
Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. So Brandon Leak, 680 The Fan, joining us in about 4 minutes right here on the Fan Upstate. But before he does, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. I guess this was a quote from the great Rob Brown, who you can hear on this station from 6 to 10 every weekday morning.
He knows ball, so.
He does. I don't know if this was a controversy. I don't know if this was a big stink on the show. But I saw this when I came in the studio today. I looked at it. I thought about it. I walked down the hall and thought about it twice. And Diesel, I want to hear from you and the Tolos before we get to Brandon Leak. Again, one more time. Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. Is Rob Brown right or is Rob Brown wrong?
Rob Brown is wrong, but I see his point because wins and losses have to matter. If wins and losses don't matter, what are we doing here? Sure. What good is it to have a quarterback that goes out and throws for 5,000 yards a season if his team ends up 3-14 every single year? Oh, you got a great quarterback, but the team sucks. Well, he didn't win anything. So what difference does it make? I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, most important stat. As a matter of fact, I probably wouldn't put it in the top 5 when it comes to most important stats for judging a quarterback over the course of a career, right? You can certainly look at individual wins and losses and say, well, the quarterback is the reason why they didn't win that game, or he is the reason why they did win that game. And in that sense, Cole, I think you could replace wins and losses with come-from-behind victories, with scoring drives inside the final 2 minutes of a game or final possession. I think there are more nuanced ways to really depict the impact that a quarterback has.
Yeah, so I think when I read that, I think situation matters, right? What's the situation around the quarterback, Diesel? Because you said about throwing for 5,000 yards and, not being, a winner. There is validity to that. However, when I say situation matters, what if we're talking about a kid, a quarterback who's elite, a D1 prospect in a small town in Alabama? And this small town's a 2A school. They don't have a lot of talent around them, and he throws for, let's say 4,000 yards his senior year. Has a lot of offers, has a lot of looks, doesn't have the receivers and the offensive line. Diesel, they go 2-8, right? Missed the playoffs. I don't think in that situation it's the end-all, be-all. To your point, you said that. I'm with you. It shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. Does it matter? Sure, but I also think the situation matters. Yeah, you want wins. JD brought up Joe Burrow. You want wins. Joe Burrow has unfortunately been a victim of the circumstance that his franchise decided to pay their top 3 players, and now, they're paying for it a little bit.
Well, a good way to look at that also is ask Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, both players that win a lot of regular season games and are great until they hit a certain point in the playoffs and they just don't win. You could also look and say playoff wins are not a quarterback stat. And I get where you're coming from with that argument, Rob, but I think that you're wrong because it does have to matter. You can be a great regular season quarterback, put up a lot of stats, and not win games when it really matters. And then that certainly colors or taints the way that people look at your legacy down the stretch. You could say, okay, he won a lot of games, but did he ever win any trophies? Did he ever win when it really mattered the most? And in that case, wins and losses absolutely are a quarterback stat, and they do matter.
That's a great question. It's a great poster, a new addition to the studios here in the Fan Upstate. And we bring in home team Brandon Leak, one of our favorite guests that we have on from 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Brandon, one of our co-hosts, you're a morning show guy, put up a new poster with a quote on it and his picture that says, Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. That is from the Rob Brown Show, which airs on this station every weekday morning. Is Rob right on that? Are wins and losses a quarterback stat in the mind of home team Brandon Leak?
Now, that's a hot sports opinion. We're told to give out hot sports opinions every now and then. I would just ask, when you get ready to send somebody to the Hall of Fame, you go over stats, which is a number. You go over yards and touchdowns, which are numbers. And then you do go over wins and losses, just like coaches. So, yeah, the wins and losses not only is a quarterback number, it is a coach number, and it is a thing. If you have a lot of those W's by your name as a quarterback, you're looked at differently than somebody who has a lot of L's next to their name as quarterback.
Brandon, I'm going to bring you into a conversation that we had in the last segment of the show, and you said it there. Our job is to bring big sports opinions, and I've been very harsh on Caleb Williams since last year when he refused to be a part of the whole quarterback draft process, all of the combines and the visiting other teams, et cetera, et cetera. Cam Ward is not going to do it. Shedeur Sanders, they just announced that he is opting out of the process when it comes to the NFL draft. Yeah, these guys can throw at their own pro days, and they may still go inside the top 5. But the mock draft for CBS Sports now has Shedeur going 6th to the Raiders. So to steal a word from Shawshank Redemption and Andy Dufresne, am I being obtuse when I say that opting out of the process should be seen, maybe it's not a red flag, but it's definitely not a green flag?
I get it for people who say, look, these are the measurables that GMs and coaches and coordinators and franchises use to make determinations on quarterbacks and other players. So I get it's here for you to compete and let's just see what you can do. The other side of it is, how does it benefit me? I mean, am I going to really move up from 6 to 3 if I'm Shedeur Sanders? No. If somebody wants to get me, they'll get me because Cam Ward and myself are the 2 top quarterbacks, it looks like, that are going to go off the board. So for people who want to criticize and question, well, why wouldn't you do it? I get it. But if you're a top pick and you know you're going in a space where people who need quarterbacks are going to be drafting you, I don't know what you gain. The only thing you can do is miss some targets, be a little bit off, not be used to the drills that they have you do and look bad. And the only thing you're going to do is create a system where you have more negative attention when you just spent years in college with live bullets and people trying to take your head off on a Saturday, showing you exactly what you could do against that kind of competition.
Hey, Brandon, right now, here it is, the end of February on this show in the upstate of South Carolina. We talk a lot of Clemson and South Carolina basketball, baseball, obviously the draft coming up, and a lot of local flavor. In Atlanta right now, in the midst of spring training, for the Atlanta Braves, and what you do on 680 The Fan, are the Braves the number 1 point of interest right now for those in Atlanta and your market? And if it's not the Braves this time of year, what is it?
Yeah, it'll be Braves right now because spring training just started. Now, as spring training goes along and our storylines in Atlanta are the unhealthy trying to get healthy. So we just had Ian Anderson, who had been out due to injury, pitch yesterday. So that became part of the narrative of spring training. But you have a lot of guys in Spencer Strider and in Ronald Acuna Jr. who won't be a part of spring training and won't be a part of the start of the regular season. Yeah, the Braves, certainly people want to poke around and see what's going on. I think what's up next, obviously, the SEC and what's happened in college basketball, the absolute genesis of a dominating basketball conference in the SEC, now getting ready to wind down the last 4 or 5 games of the regular season, head to tournament play, and everybody will be focused on the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, in Georgia, it doesn't look like, unless the Bulldogs rip off a massive win streak at the end, starting with Florida coming up tomorrow night, it'll be tough for them unless they win multiple games in the SEC champion or in the SEC tournament to get to a tournament bid. So we're a little bit down on that.
Well, Brandon Leak, I'm glad that you put that one on a tee for me. It teaches me we're not playing coach's pitch. We're playing T-ball right now because you put it right there on the tee. I had that question about Georgia basketball. Just how much emphasis is Josh Brooks putting on this basketball program? 4-10 in the SEC. Obviously, it's a proud fan base that loves winning at football, and they know how much fun winning can be. I mean, you got to go all the way back to 2015, 2016 to find a winning season. Is it just kind of a don't embarrass us, get us to football season kind of program, or Does he actually want to make this an elite national level program?
No, he is looking to turn the corner. And Mike White, who now has been a part of the sidelines for the last 3 years, it really is just a disappointing year. They've had massive renovations to the Bulldogs' home facilities at Stegman Memorial Coliseum, and the upgrades have certainly been welcomed by the fans. So if you go to Auburn, if you go to Ole Miss, if you go to Alabama, the other schools at the top of the SEC, they are pouring resources into their venues and into the program, and Georgia's done the same thing. It's been really frustrating because the Bulldogs started off 14-2 before they got to conference play. They knocked off Kentucky, so things looked like even if you won 50% of your games here in the SEC, it would have been a magical ride, and trying to get to 22 or 23 wins would have been awesome. And now you're scraping to see if you can get to 20, and it just really has been disappointing because they cannot get it together. They either get off to slow starts or they get off to slow finishes at the end. And a typical example of that was when they were right there, 5-point game with 5 minutes to go against the number one team in Auburn, and they just couldn't get back-to-back stops and ended up losing by double digits. So it's been tremendously disappointing. But no, Josh Brooks, he wants to win. The Georgia program, they want to win in gymnastics. They want to win in tennis. They want to win in football. They want to win in basketball. They want to win in baseball. They want to have an overall winning program.
Home team Brandon Leak of 680 The Fan in Atlanta joining us right here on The Fan Upstate. Brandon, from 1 year ago today, on February the 24th, 2024, to today, fast forward an entire year, the Falcons have looked a little bit different, right? We were all surprised by the drafting of Michael Penix in the 2024 NFL draft, and now the Falcons have the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL draft coming up in about 59 days, under 60 days away now until the NFL draft. What is the overall consensus from those of you who cover the Atlanta Falcons day in and day out, of what the Falcons may do, or just from what happened last year, are y'all just throwing your hands up and saying who knows what's going to happen in 2025?
Well, it certainly was a flabbergasting end to the season where you had all kinds of chaos. We had a hurt kicker the final 4 weeks of the year. Now we find out after the season you had a hurt quarterback, and I have talked to several people. It doesn't seem like Kirk Cousins was the most forthright of quarterbacks when asked about his health. The team apparently kept asking him, are you okay? Are you okay? And he kept trying to work through some things, and it culminated in him just being absolutely awful. A stretch of one touchdown and 9 interceptions in a 5-week span, which really put the Falcons in a bad place. They started off 6-3, and then after all of that, you switch quarterbacks, put in a rookie, and all you have to do is win your final 2 games of the season, and you automatically punch a ticket. They lose in overtime at Washington after Michael Penix Jr. takes the team down the field on the final play of regulation. And then they have an embarrassing loss, the final game of the season, where they still had a chance to get in at Tampa lost, and Tampa didn't win that game until about 30 seconds left on the clock, their final game. And Michael Penix took them down on the final drive and sent them to overtime, and then you give up 44 points to the Panthers. So people are frustrated. They flat out want defense to be a priority when the last 4 years Terry Fontenot has invested assets on the offensive side of the ball, and Michael Penix Jr., Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Now they want some defense. They want an edge rusher, and they want somebody immediately to come in and help the Falcons' defense.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, joined on the phone by home team Brandon League 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Does the city of Atlanta really feel it when NASCAR comes to town? 125,000 people making their way to that venue. I know a lot of people make their way into downtown Atlanta every single day or every single week or month for big-time events, but when 125,000 come in, how much of a stress and strain does that put on the city?
Not a lot. We're an international city, brother. We do Olympics, we do Super Bowls, we do Final Fours, we do national championship games. You name it. We are about to do the World Cup next year for semifinal action. This is an international city set up for any kind of function or venue, and the folks who get a chance to stay in the Atlanta or the surrounding areas before they go down to Atlanta Motor Speedway, they get a chance to see the other sights and sounds of Atlanta, where the Atlanta Braves play. Where our studios are in the home of the Braves at 680 The Fan is the Battery Atlanta, where they have a setup for you to go get something to eat, go play some games, great place for families. So there are plenty of people that come to Atlanta Motor Speedway and other events. They get a chance to sample and slice what Atlanta really is.
Brandon, when it comes to the Atlanta Braves, you mentioned a couple of important pieces that will not be in spring training and that won't be starting the season with the 2025 squad. As a lifelong Brave fan, I've kind of, come to grips with this season being, who knows what's going to happen, right? We just don't know after last year. A lot of ups and downs, a little bit of a roller coaster year when it comes to what the Braves were able to do. You guys cover a lot closer than we do in terms of being right there in the battery that you talked about. What are, I guess, realistic expectations? What are realistic expectations when Braves fans look at this season and what's to come and where their mind should be?
Well, realistically, if people stay healthy, to be in the National League Championship Series, most likely facing off against the Dodgers. This is a really good team. It was unbelievable the amount of injury that took place. I mean, if you look at what you lost last year, when you talk about Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Michael Harris at different points, you're talking about losing a Cy Young Award winner, a Rookie of the Year in the National League, and an MVP. All gone. And now all of those guys will be back. If those guys are back out on the field, you've got a chance. And we're still waiting for the breakout year from Austin Riley, who looked like he was poised to have that, but then he gets hit in the hand and cannot come back from the injury. And you're just dealing with a case where you just had to piece things together, piece lineups together. So I don't think Braves fans, the Braves aren't saying it this year, World Series are bust, but they do know if they can stay healthy, they can play, they can hit, they can pitch with anybody in the National League and anybody in the world of baseball.
He is Home Team Brandon Leak. Look him up and find him on Twitter at Home Team B Leak. Home Team B Leak. Definitely worth a follow. We appreciate your time every single time we bring you on. Excited to have you on again to talk NFL Draft, Braves, all things there and above as well.
Anytime, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time.
That's good stuff, man. On the Braves front, we hadn't spent a lot of time there because, spring training underway, not a ton of storylines, but that he hit on it. That's been the frustration. As a fan, the Braves have just been unfortunate as of late. You can't do anything about health, Diesel, right? When guys go down, when Austin Riley gets hit in the hand, when Acuna, I don't even say it, when Acuna gets hurt, you can't do anything about it. It's nobody's fault, but it is very frustrating, and it seems like the Braves have just kind of been bit by the injury bug the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's some teams that somehow find a way to just insulate themselves from all of that. You just don't see a Shohei Ohtani caliber player just go down with being hit in the hand on a high pitch inside. It just doesn't happen.
Sounds bad for me to ask this, but I'm going to do it. I don't wish injury on anyone, but if you are a team that's been hit with the injury bug like the Braves have, can we send that freaking bug somewhere else? I mean, can we take that bug and put it in a shipment container and send it to L.A.?
That's a very easy thing to do. Have they thought about saging the clubhouse? I mean, that's a thing, right? When you buy a house, you're supposed to burn some sage in the house. It's supposed to expel all the bad spirits.
Man.
Offer some rum and a cigar to Jobu. I don't know what you got to do.
I'm just frustrated. I know to Brandon's point, they should be able to, if they stay healthy, they should be able to compete. Maybe make that NLDS with the Dodgers. But gosh, man, it's just every year you just I'm just waiting. Let's say middle of April, late May. There's somebody that's very important on this Braves roster is going to get hurt. It feels like that's part of the script as of late.
It also begs the question, where's the depth? Where's the depth among this team?
Well, your stars go down, though. I mean, you're talking about, Austin Riley, who's maybe a future Hall of Famer. It's just the stars.
But in theory, everybody's dealing with injury, right? Everybody's going to have to take a couple weeks off here and there.
I hope the Dodgers deal with it. God, come on.
I mean, then it, I know it's – why are they so snake bitten? It's not like it's strength and conditioning kind of injuries. It's just bad luck. And how does one team get more of it? Who didn't pick their feet up when they drove past a graveyard on the last road trip?
I want some more luck. I need a little luck as a Braves fan.
When we come back.
final segment of the final hour of the first day of the week. It is a Monday. If you missed anything from today's show, we encourage you, download, as Tom would say, Diesel, that Audacity app. It's not called that, but it was a great promo. Odyssey, Audacy. You can go back and listen to anything, anytime with the Odyssey app. Download it. You'll see the chapters. They're titled for you. So you won't miss out on anything that happens. That's called turning it on and leaving it on here on the Fan Upstate.
You get to jump right back in where you left off.
That's right.
Say you tried to Tolo.
Yeah.
You tried to do the right thing, right? You tried to. You turned it on. Something happens. It's life. You had to turn us off for a little bit. But guess what? You can go back and pick right back up where you left off. And you're good to go. Just you jump right back to the chapter. Heck, I think you could even scroll through like an AI-generated transcript. So if you remember something that we said, and said like, oh, I remember when they said that, I can jump right back to that point and be even more accurate.
That's right. And look, Tolos, I want to thank Rob Brown of the Rob Brown Show, which airs 6 to 10 right here on the Fan Upstate for the new poster that's behind Diesel. If you missed it earlier, we had the conversation. Rob has put a brand new poster in the Fan Upstate studios. And Diesel, it's right behind you. It says wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. Is Rob right or is Rob wrong? What does he mean? A quarterback stat?
People judging quarterbacks and their careers on wins and losses.
I think they should. Thinks it matters. I don't think it, like you said earlier, I don't think it's the end-all be-all, but it certainly has to matter, doesn't it?
It's got to be in there. It's got to be in there. I think it's kind of a blunt force object, though, when you talk about wins and losses and whether or not it's a viable stat to judge someone by. It's a blunt force. It's like there's a whole lot of context that's being left out when you simply go by wins and losses. So I think you need to break that stat down a whole lot of different ways. Or if you want to use wins and losses as a stat, you gotta move it down the priority list. It can't even be in the top 5.
Well, you said it. There's so much context. When you say wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, there's so much context that's left out of there, right? What level? What's the situation? I mean, there's so much.
Did you play like crap and the defense backed you up?
Yeah. Does your defense suck?
Did you throw 3 picks, but you've got a hell of a running back who scored enough touchdowns to win you the game?
Does, your offensive line look like the little Giants? I mean, there's so many factors. Ultimately, though, it's not the end-all, be-all, but a quarterback, when they're measured, I think Brandon Leak said it best, right? When a quarterback, Diesel, goes into the Hall of Fame, they do. They look at their stats. They look at their time played, the longevity. You telling me that for Michael Jordan, and I know he's not a quarterback, but it applies to other sports, like those wins matter. Those championships matter, and it goes a long way.
Well, if you ask Cam Newton, fumbles recovered in the Super Bowl is not a quarterback stat that he wants to be known for either. I mean, you look at him and he would say, talk about my stats, not about my wins and losses. Don't talk about how far I took my team. Don't talk about my rings. Just talk about how many individual trophies I won.
Cam, let's call Cam Newton tomorrow on the show. And if we can find Cam's number in our...
we got it in the Rolodex.
Right
behind
you.
There,
long list of contacts. Let's call Cam and say, hey, Cam, we've got a new poster that says wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. If you very quickly could imagine what Cam, if I tomorrow had Cam Newton on this phone line and I asked Cam, are wins and losses a quarterback stat? What would Cam Newton say, in your opinion, Diesel?
I think he would say it's so far down the list of important stats that it doesn't even matter to him. He's like, does it really matter if I won the games? I won MVP,
Most valuable player.
I helped this locker room full of losers.
That's true. He did say that.
Become winners.
Gosh, you cannot say that. You cannot say that, but he said it. You can think it. If it's true, it's one thing, but you can't say. That's a good life lesson.
Cole, if you could go back and see the amount of hate that I got on YouTube from these Cam Newton fanboys that are jumping on me over saying that Cam was the loser in life because he got out of a felony charge when he was in college. Like, that's loser behavior. He went on to do great things with his life, but that's loser behavior. Come on. But you got people just like being like, well, he fixed himself and he went off and got his team to the Super Bowl and won MVP. Cam's good in my book.
He's good to go, right?
I guess so. Tolos, appreciate you joining the show today. Again, as Cole was saying, go find us on the Odyssey app. Make sure you hit subscribe. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at The Fan Upstate. Super easy. Same name across all of them. Find, follow, subscribe, like, all of it. Tolos.